Therefore, the Whalers, with great reluctance, are announcing that we will concentrate our efforts to find a new home for the team.
According to the man who's making the decision, it's either Raleigh or Columbus. Everyone else is off the ice. As far as the climate of the deal, many say the sun is shining on Raleigh.
I join you in declaring this arena as the home in which national championships will be won by the Wolfpack and the Hurricanes.
This afternoon here as the Triangle opens up its new showcase for sports entertainment. They've been here all afternoon whooping it up, waiting for the excitement of the National Hockey League as the gates open. 18,000 plus walk into the brand new Raleigh Entertainment and Sports Arena here in Raleigh. We have dropped the puck and the National Hockey League is home in Raleigh, North Carolina. The Carolina Hurricanes have won the Stanley
Cup. 10 years can feel like just a few glorious moments. Hi everyone, I'm John Forsland, TV voice of the Carolina Hurricanes, and I'm proud to be here to tell you the story of hockey in the state of North Carolina. It's been an amazing journey which involves a connection between a fan base and a team and how they grew together and at the end of the day made everyone know that we're serious about hockey here in the Triangle. I'm talking about 10 years of Carolina Hurricanes hockey. Let's start with the story of a man, his dream, and the team we've all grown to love.
Growing up in Detroit, Michigan, Peter Karmanos was surrounded by a variety of sporting options. Everything from the Detroit Lions, Tigers, and Pistons to one of the original 6 NHL teams, the Detroit Red Wings.
Growing up in Detroit, at that time they had Gordie Howe and Ted Lindsay and Terry Sawchuk. And it was a 6-team league, and generally I would get interested at playoff time. And just listening to all that great hockey through the years really made me a big fan, even though I played baseball and football.
As Peter grew into a man and began his career, it was apparent that he was destined for greatness. In 1973, with money from his income tax return, he created CompuWare with his friends Thomas Thews and the late Alan B. Cutting. This small company would eventually blossom into a worldwide leader in technology, bringing in annually $1.2 billion and employing over 8,000 employees. While he was making his name in the technology industry, his 3 boys were growing up playing Little League hockey. It was at that time that Peter noticed that local leagues could use a little direction and leadership, so he created the CompuWare junior hockey program.
When I started to raise the boys, I realized that they needed to go and skate. And my partner at the same time had his 2 oldest boys were the same age as my 2 oldest boys. And one thing led to another, and we got really immersed in the game and built probably the best youth hockey program in the United States and better than most programs in Canada. And we got a couple arenas and then some ex-players to coach the kids because we felt it was better than having parents coach kids. And on and on and on and on.
This led to the next phase of his road towards the National Hockey League when Jim Rutherford signed on and a team from Hartford was looking for new ownership.
And we had the worst attendance in the league when we bought the team, the year before we bought the team. They finished dead last. I think they got like 38 or 42 points the season before we bought them. And even after we bought them, we really upgraded the team quickly. We still couldn't sell more than 8,000 or 9,000 season, or average more than 8,000 or 9,000 people.
Once in Hartford, it became apparent that the organization was in desperate need for a new venue or a better lease deal to remain in Connecticut.
We didn't have any of those revenue streams that you need to compete. We didn't even have suite revenue. So we tried to get the people involved with the state and people at Hartford to understand the financial situation that we were in. Unfortunately, the governor of the state at that time was had a different agenda. So he sent us packing, so to speak, when we wouldn't cooperate with him.
Though it was a very tough decision, Peter decided it was time to seek a new home for his NHL franchise. A decision of this magnitude cannot be undertaken lightly, and every option presented needed to be thoroughly explored. At this time, down in Raleigh, North Carolina, the city was persistently trying to find a major league sports franchise for its growing population and stature.
We first heard about Mr. Carmano's interest in Raleigh on an ESPN sports show, and he told them that he was going to get out and look around, and one of the places he thought he'd go look was Raleigh, North Carolina. Obviously, the next day we were on the phone to Detroit to see what we could do to get him down here.
Peter was impressed, and shortly thereafter we started conversations about moving the Hartford Whalers to our market.
To me, this is a story about, it's not about buildings, it's not about money, it's not about politics, it's about one man's passion. And the passion that Pete Karmanos has for hockey is palpable. It's visceral, you can feel it.
Mr. Karmanos looked at the Triangle and made a unbelievable commitment to the Triangle, and it's really paid off.
Adding another stroke of divine intervention, Peter's youngest son, Jason Karmanos, a product of the CompuWare Hockey League, was playing for the Raleigh Ice Caps of the East Coast Hockey League.
My biggest impression of Raleigh and the Raleigh area was the number of construction crews and the amount of red clay that you would see. And I don't think that's changed to this day. It just keeps growing, and I know that was one of the most attractive parts about this region, was the high growth potential.
Therefore, the Whalers, with great regret and reluctance, are announcing that we will concentrate our efforts to find a new home for the team.
So with several stars aligning, Peter decided the best path for his team was straight up Tobacco Road, and the Triangle became the destiny city for his franchise. The National Hockey League gave Peter their support.
Well, obviously we hate to leave any place, but we had no choice, and Pete believed in the Triangle, believed that this was going to be a great market for NHL hockey, and I think he was right.
With a destination city in sight, now came obstacles that needed addressing. Plans were already drafted for construction on a new building for the NC State Wolfpack, but the building as originally designed simply would not meet the standards of an NHL team or its league.
I had come down to Raleigh because the people at the Centennial Authority had called, told me they were building this building, and I really liked what I saw. I thought it would be a great market. I thought the building they were planning to build was a state-of-the-art building, and I thought it would be nice to be able to start a franchise new in Raleigh.
When they looked at our plans and the NHL looked at our plans didn't match up to what they thought was a quality NHL arena. So we stopped in mid-process and redesigned this building to meet an NHL standard, but we got a tremendously better building out of that process.
It was a delicate balance to get all of the players together to work out a program to finance the building and construction of this arena. It took a lot of goodwill, a lot of hard work, and at the end of the day, all of those players came together, and we were able to put together, I think, one of the finest arenas in the Americas.
The timing was wonderful because the Hurricanes brought a whole clientele that we hadn't had before. Centennial Authority was formed. The Wolfpack had a chance to build a state-of-the-art facility. It is a treat to be in, whether you're a fan or an athlete. There's just a lot of pride in this place.
Kind of like two families living in one house, but it's a great relationship, and I think we both have prospered from it. I think the community definitely has, not just from our two events being in the building, but all the other events that it's brought to this building in this area have been a big asset to the community.
On a beautiful day in 1997, the ground was broken on the future site of the RBC Center, and the Carolina Hurricanes were out of the starting gates. The focus then turned towards the team and what it would take to move a living, breathing franchise.
And Jim Rutherford came into my office and said, have offices up and operating within 2 weeks. So quickly on a plane down to Raleigh, scouting out office space. As it turned out, very few employees came with us, had to hire all new employees down here. And believe it or not, in 2 weeks we were up and operating, selling tickets, selling advertising, had much of our new staff in place?
Well, usually when you have to do something, you get it done, but ideally when you move a professional sports franchise, it takes you 18, 24 months of planning, and we ended up with 3 or 4 months.
With the new arena under construction, the building of the hockey team was also underway. The team that came from Hartford was full of quality-type players like Glenn Wesley and Keith Primo, and they were led by a young and fiery coach in Paul Maurice. It would take a group of strong-minded men to deal with a less-than-perfect situation, as the franchise made the decision to play the first 2 seasons in Greensboro, North Carolina, a city about an hour-and-a-half's drive from their eventual home.
Coming out of Hartford, we had Kevin Dineen and we had Glenn Wesley and guys like that have such strong character. We had a very good coach in Paul Maurice, and everybody bought into it, and they were going to do what they had to do.
Greensboro and the people and the fans of Greensboro were great. It was just logistically difficult to have your home games played at such a distance, and then where do you have your pregame skates, and all the little things that maybe people wouldn't notice that go into running an NHL team. They were made very difficult.
I think the toughest thing of what anything in life is change. Now all of a sudden you're coming into unknown territory, and you know as a player that part of your responsibility is going to be selling that market.
It was an extremely tough time. You'd leave the house at 8 o'clock and you'd literally come home at midnight. So it was hard on us that had young kids and families. It really was. It was not only a commitment for us to get down there, but also for the families, you know.
Whether they liked the commute or not, it did not matter as the game's first face-off approached. In August of 1997, as the team was getting set to start training camp, Jim Rutherford trades for goaltender Trevor Kidd and a power forward by the name of Gary Roberts.
You have to have great character, and you have to have great leadership. And the one thing I knew about Gary Roberts is he had that great leadership. He could bring a lot to our team and make a lot of players better.
At long last, it was time for hockey. The first regular season game in Carolina Hurricanes history was a road game. The first opponent was their division's first rival, the Tampa Bay Lightning. Fittingly enough, the first goal in franchise history came off the stick of the same man who scored the last goal as a Hartford Whaler, simultaneously closing the door while opening another.
Cross for Dineen. He'll take on Hammer, winding and shooting. He scores! Kevin Dineen slipped it by the stick side of Pupa. And with 18.6 seconds to go in the first period, he gets the Hurricanes' first goal.
You know, you can say, well, it's just a goal, that kind of thing, but, you know, to score the last one on the way out of Hartford and to get that first one there is kind of one of those unique stats that get thrown around every now and then. And, yeah, you're proud of those kind of things, you know. Remember the goal in Tampa Bay, and it was a, you know, it was kind of a little bit of a separation, okay. You know, we're moving on from the Whalers. Now it's time for us to be Hurricanes, and certainly something that I take a lot of pride in, that my name's associated with the franchise. Hopefully a lot longer than the 10 years we're celebrating now.
Several days later, it was time for hockey to make its official debut in North Carolina. And though Game 1 was a huge success, the forecast for stormy skies was on the horizon.
We had the opening night, and then I think we're going to play the Los Angeles Kings in our next home game, and he called me and said, Mr. Karmanos, I don't know how to tell you this, but I think we have 12 tickets sold for the LA game. I said, oh, hey, Matt, don't worry about it. I have fun with it. Oh, man, we got work to do.
Showing the resilience of their ownership, the Hurricanes would battle all season long and set the tone that the Hurricanes franchise were out to prove that the organization had turned a corner and that they would fight for success in the South.
Well, Mr. Karmanos has done as much for hockey as anybody in the National Hockey League, and he's probably more prepared to be an owner than anyone because he's been involved with hockey at all levels. So he really understands the sport. He's done a lot for the sport in both Canada and the United States, but clearly being given that award was so well deserved.
In the final week of the 1997-98 season, after battling and fighting for each point all year long, the Hurricanes were eliminated from the playoff picture.
The fact that we missed the playoffs that first year, late in the year, was very disappointing. I think it would have gave us more momentum going into the following season.
one season of hockey under the belt and feeling more comfortable in constructing their new future, it was time to add another building block to the franchise. Someone that the fans could relate to, someone that brought a sense of tradition and pride to the organization. A player who made his mark with this very team in Hartford, who wanted to come to an emerging hockey market and help plant the seeds of growth. Someone named Ron Francis.
Well, we always felt that, Hartford as a franchise took a giant step back when they made that trade with Pittsburgh. It was almost like a giveaway. And I really don't understand what they were doing, but they took the heart of their team and moved that. And when we bought the franchise, you could see how bad that had hurt the franchise. So when we got word that Ron was going to be a free agent, Jimmy and I both moved heaven and earth to get him signed here because we felt like he again would be a linchpin into the launch of the Hurricane franchise.
He was the next building block to the addition of Gary Roberts to bring in another great player and great leadership.
Well, for me, it was the first time really in my career I was a totally unrestricted free agent, so there was a lot of factors that went into it. When I started looking at Carolina, I started doing some homework online about the city and how it was growing and then the climate here and the schools and everything else. I thought, you know what, this would be a good place to take my family. It's a great area to raise your kids and relatively safe. And we have 4 weeks where it's probably too hot and 4 weeks where it's probably too cold. But other than that, it's pretty tough to beat.
With Ron Francis on the roster and a quirky little Latvian minding the pipes in Artur Zerbe, the team was ready to make a run for the postseason and make some noise in the Southeast. That is exactly what they did. By the end of October, the Hurricanes had taken the lead in the Southeast Division, and they would never look back. In December, looking to shore up the defense and bring in a player with a wealth of playoff experience, the Hurricanes traded winger Nelson Emerson for NHL Hall of Famer and 4-time Stanley Cup winner Paul Coffey.
Paul Coffey was one of the greatest defensemen of all time, a guy that wore the Hurricanes jersey that went on to go into the Hall of Fame, and brought great speed to our team. I don't think that this was a perfect fit for Paul here. After playing in Pittsburgh and Edmonton, this was a little different for him and a little tougher adjustment, but he was a good player for us.
In January, the Hurricanes would send captain Keith Primo and goaltender Artur Zerbe to the NHL All-Star Game, marking another first for the franchise. As the team went down the stretch towards the playoffs in February, Ron Francis and Paul Coffey would bring national recognition to the franchise. On February 9, 1999, playing in his 1300th NHL game, Ron Francis would celebrate his milestone by recording a 5-point night, scoring 2 goals and tallying 3 assists in a 6-5 victory against the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Francis almost goal, did get it in front, scores! Ron Francis with his 4th assist, and the story has been Francis and Berezin. Happening in the corner with Cote, centered off the leg, right to Francis, scores! Oh my! His 5th point of the game!
9 days later, on February 18th, Paul Coffey would play in his 1300th game, making the duo the first teammates in league history to record the milestone of 1,300 games played in the same season. 3 days later, on February 21st, winger Ray Shepherd keeps the spotlight on the Hurricanes as he becomes the first player in league history to score 20 goals in a season for 6 different teams. On April 9th, 1999, the Hurricanes clinched their first Southeast Division title and bring the indescribable excitement of playoff hockey to North Carolina.
It gave us that feeling that what we were doing, that commitment that we made off the ice, as far as the challenges we had with our families and the time and effort that was there. It was really, there was something something to that.
Those were really important times for our franchise. I think that's really where you saw the great leadership in our organization come out, staying the course, staying young, not getting carried away with bringing in more expensive pieces that didn't fit, even though the market wanted it. They wanted to see a winner. They wanted to see tangible proof that we were improving, and I think that was the very first time we were able to offer something and say, this is a franchise that is going in the right direction.
I think that year for me What I'll remember is a team that was a good team, that battled hard through a lot of adversity, and set the stage for the team moving to Raleigh and its eventual home.
Their opponent would be an old Northeast nemesis, the Boston Bruins. The Bruins would draw first blood by winning Game 1 by the final score of 2-0. In Game 2, the Canes would even the score as Ray Shepard scores in overtime for the organization's first playoff win in Carolina. The Hurricanes would take a series lead in Game 3, winning by a count of 3-2. Game 4 in Boston was all Bruins, as they would win 4-1. Back in Carolina, Game 5 would be an epic battle that would see both teams knotted at 3 at the end of regulation. In overtime, victory was bounced off the stick of Martin Gélina when he double hit the puck with a wide-open net. It was a precursor of things to come, as shortly thereafter in the second overtime, Anson Carter shot a puck through the hearts of the Hurricanes and their new fans. Boston took the series lead 3-2.
You know, all those what-ifs. Now that we see, especially in the game today, that if you can get there, you can win. And that was one of those years that I thought, if we could have stayed a little healthier, a little longer, the belief would have started to kick in, and we might have done some damage that year.
We had a good team. We lost an overtime game in Greensboro that if we had won that game, we would have gone on, and hard to say how much further we would have gone. We could have won, kept going.
You can't change what's happened. It's there and it's done with, and you know, unfortunately it didn't turn out the way we wanted at the time, but you know, there's a lot of things we can be proud of in that season.
It was a sick feeling, and it was my first taste of being around the NHL playoffs and having a stake in it. And you learn in a hurry that it's not fun to lose.
With their momentum gone, the Hurricanes would lose the series in the next game. As much as any playoff series loss can hurt, it cannot compare to the pain the Hurricanes would soon feel when they heard the news of the untimely death of one of their own. While driving home from a postseason party, Steve Chason was involved in a single car accident that ended his life way too early.
He was such a good person and unfortunately died tragically, and that was really at the end of that season, which really summed up the season and really made the loss of any hockey game or any serious series seem to be not that important.
For me personally, it was a little bit tougher in the sense that I lived just down the street from him, so I got to see him a lot away from the rink, you know, and see what a great father he was and to his kids, and a great husband to Sue, and so when obviously, you know, that happened, it was extremely tough.
That's still a tough story to talk about, because Chase is a guy that we all, you know, he was a teammate, and he was a little bit more than that. You know, he had sincerity about him that players gravitated towards him, and that was a hard thing for that franchise. That took us a couple years to get over that.
The thing, I guess, that I remember maybe the most is the team service that we had, and Sue Chason got up to speak, and I can remember thinking, oh, this is going to be tough because this entire room is going to fall apart. And she showed us strength, and it was a really powerful time. And when she was done, for me, I thought, most importantly, her kids are going to be okay, and Sue's going to be okay.
That was one of the most difficult things that I've ever been through, you know, as a player, and you know, the whole organization and you know, the whole family, you know, mourned through the loss of that, and you know, it's something that obviously sticks out in everybody's mind.
Steve was a great guy. You know, I was a young kid at the time. I just started, and I didn't have a lot of interaction at that point in time with the players. But I remember that night on the plane coming back from Boston, I had a long conversation with him for about 20 minutes. We were eating chicken fingers, and he was excited. He was excited about the organization and the area and raising his family in the area, and I'll remember that conversation forever.
We all got together at the hockey rink, and just to make sure that we were together as a family, like you said, and I think that what happens is that, you know, through each other, you manage somehow to get through it.
I hope I can say this properly. It almost, in some ways, fit what we were going through as a group. There was just, we were taking these steps forward, and then something would happen, and very difficult for a franchise, but again, able to continue.
Hope springs eternal. In the fall of '99-2000, the Hurricanes finally had a home. Once dubbed the Entertainment and Sports Arena, the RBC Center gave birth to a nation, the Caniac Nation, and this is their home. Though it was only a 2-year wait for the Hurricanes, it was a long and winding road from the first shovel of dirt to the first fan into their new building.
Well, we didn't know if we were going to open that first night. We had gone through what some folks may remember as El Nino, about 365 days of continuous rain. We were literally down to the last minutes in getting the final permits to occupy this building.
It's a night that will stick in my mind forever because we had a huge investment just in all of our character. You know, playing through those dismal nights in Hartford, and then the really weak-attended games in Greensboro, and then to show up here with our fans, and the building's such a beautiful building, and it was just special.
It was so nice to see all that new paint. To walk in and say, this is our place, this is our home, was a great feeling. They did a fantastic job building that arena, and did a really nice, making it a family atmosphere, making it nice and tight. It was just great getting out on the ice and standing on the bench and say, all right, this is our home, this is it. And now it's real, because it's hard to imagine it until you get there, and when it became real, it was a great feeling.
Yeah, I think the opening of the building for a lot of us was just sort of the realization that, you know, here we are, we're in Raleigh, and you know, now it's time for us to start selling the game even more aggressively, because this is our home base.
When the building opened on that opening night, knowing that this was going to be the home of the Carolina Hurricanes for many, many years, that's when my emotions really set in and thought, man, that was a long road, but this is really worth it.
Andrei Kovalenko would record the building's first Hurricanes goal amidst the pomp and circumstance of the grand opening.
Andrei Kovalenko has scored the first goal in the Raleigh Entertainment and Sports Arena. 1-0 Hurricanes.
The Hurricanes would lose their first game in the RBC Center to the Devils, setting up the diagram for the team's first real rivalry in the Triangle. In November, with the Hurricanes' negotiations with Keith Primo continuing to sour, the newly named captain Ron Francis became the 6th player in NHL history to reach the milestone of 1,500 NHL career points.
Ron Francis, 1,500 points.
1 month later, teammate defenseman Paul Coffey reaches the same mark of 1,500 NHL career points, making the duo the first teammates in NHL history to reach this distinguished milestone in the same year.
Longevity pays off, 1,500 career points.
In January, the team decides to make a move and end a negotiational stalemate. Keith Primo, who had been the face of the organization since moving to the Carolinas, amidst a very public feud, the Hurricanes found a deal that they felt benefited both Primo and the Hurricanes.
We were very determined that we were going to get the player that we wanted, or we weren't going to make the trade. And in Brind'Amour's case, he was hurt most of the year. You know, we had kind of focused on a Rod Brind'Amour deal, but he had the broken ankle, and then we kept waiting and waiting, and then even when he was ready to play, it was a Brind'Amour type situation. He played despite the fact most players wouldn't. And then at that point, we said, okay, we're going to make this deal, even though he's not 100%. It was the right thing for us to do. His leadership, his character was just part of the addition of the Gary Roberts and the Ronnie Francises. And in order to have championship teams, you have to have guys like that. And, you know, it's proven to be a big move for us and the right thing to do at the time.
You know, he's a first-class guy, great leader. Everybody knows how hard he works off the ice, and you know, he's a great family guy. And you know, he's just he's the ultimate.
I've never seen a guy in all my years of playing that has a work ethic like Roddy. I mean, he's just incredible in how much time and effort he puts into his game. And you know, in addition to that, you know, he's one of those guys. I mean, he's got that character, and he's good to be around, and you know, very willing to get out in the community. And I'm sure a lot of people who've met him would speak highly of him because of that. So, just a consummate professional.
Roddy Brind'Amour came in as a champion, in my mind, without a Stanley Cup ring.
It was a tough day for me. I mean, I think, you know, I've been somewhere for a long time. I've been in an organization that I thought I was kind of thought of well, and it was my home. That's all I knew. And you know, to get a phone call from, at that time, Paul Maurice at 2 in the afternoon in a hotel in Pittsburgh, just says, "Can you get on a 3:30 flight to Carolina?" You know, so it was a tough adjustment, I think, for me coming here, and then knowing that, you know, they wanted me to come in and kind of help this team. And it, you know, it was a shock to the system.
In February, playing in the NHL All-Star Game, Sami Kapanen stakes a claim that the fastest man on skates in the NHL wears a Hurricanes logo on his chest. In April of 2000, with the team scratching in vain at the playoffs, Coach Paul Maurice becomes the franchise's winningest coach.
Now, look, I've known Paul since he was 16, and it was fun watching him grow as a hockey person.
He's an amazing individual, and he really deserves a ton of credit for putting this organization on the right path in terms of how the team plays and how the team prepares itself to play.
He hung in there through good and bad times, and he became the winningest coach. And it, you know, will take some time for someone to pass that mark.
But it meant two things to me. One, that it wouldn't have happened without the support of Jim Rutherford and Peter Karmanos. And it was also a bit of a thank you, you know, you were right. So they invested a lot, and it was highly unusual. Well, I'm still the youngest coach in the league, and that's 12 years later, so it was an unusual thing to do what they did. And like they always do, they saw what they thought was right, made a decision, and stuck with it. And I certainly wouldn't be here or have survived without them.
The Canes would miss the playoffs by just a few points. Missing out on the postseason by a few points left everyone within the organization hungry for the start of next year's campaign. In the offseason, forward Gary Roberts opts for free agency, leaving a void the Hurricanes would try to fill by signing perennial all-star defenseman Sandis Ozolinsh. While Sandis struggled to gain the confidence of the Hurricanes fans, the team played a somewhat consistent game throughout the first half of the 2000-2001 season. Rookie Shane Willis began to make his mark in the NHL, and winger Jeff O'Neill moved into the upper echelon of NHL snipers. In February, Sandis Ozolinsh becomes the first Hurricanes player voted to start in an NHL All-Star game. In March, Ron Francis sets another milestone with the organization when he records his 1,000th franchise point. In April, with the Hurricanes closing in on a playoff berth, Jeff O'Neill sets a Hurricanes mark by becoming the first player in a Canes jersey to score 40 goals in a single season.
Empty net goal, Carolina will win. 40th goal of the season for Jeff O'Neill.
Well, the season that O'Neill broke through was not any surprise to anybody. He is a very talented player. I really think from the first day he came into the franchise that he was a good player. He always contributed to our team, and he was a very smart player. People looked at him more as a goal scorer, but you know, he could play the game both ways. And I really think that through all the years, not only his 40-goal year, Jeff O'Neill was a good player for us.
Led by the leadership of Ron Francis, the scoring touch of Jeff O'Neill, the youthful fire of Shane Willis, the grit of Rod Brind'Amour, and the backstopping ability of Artur Zerbe, the Hurricanes clinch a berth into the postseason, the first playoffs to be played in the Triangle. Fittingly enough, their opponent was the opening night spoilers, the defending Stanley Cup champion, New Jersey Devils. The Hurricanes were not ready for the experience and abject fierceness of the Scott Stevens captain Devils. In Game 1, New Jersey dominated play and won going away 5-1. In Game 2, in the waning moments of a 2-0 victory for the Devils, Scott Stevens catches Shane Willis with his head down and knocks him right out of the playoffs. A devastating collision that has rippled throughout what was once a very promising career.
Well, Shane Willis was a 20-goal scorer for us one year. Great skater, could shoot the puck with anybody, and really starting to come in to be an NHL player. But I believe that the hit that Stevens put on him, totally changed his career and affected his career in a negative way, and he wasn't able to recover from it the way that he would have liked to, or we would have liked him to.
Clearly that's a point that we can look at and say things were not the same after. Still a very, very good player, but I think that those things do change players sometimes.
Limping back into the Triangle and trailing in the series 2-0, the Hurricanes had little time to lick their wounds. With a hard-nosed leader like Scott Stevens prowling the ice, everyone and anyone is fair game. This time, Captain Ron Francis was victim to a vicious Scott Stevens hit, and he too was knocked out of the series. The hit sparked something inside the Hurricanes and their fans. While they would lose this game 4-0, the fight within roared to the surface. In Game 4, the Canes played with a total team effort and battled the Devils even through 3 periods for a 2-all score at the end of regulation. In overtime, Rod Brind'Amour answered the bell and brought to Raleigh the elation of winning a playoff game on home ice.
Putting quickly over the line, he waits, fires, the delayed shot, they score! And a deflection out in front! Rod Brind'Amour at 46 seconds!
In Game 5, the Devils played as if they just had to show up and they would close out the Canes in front of their fans in New Jersey. But the Canes had other plans and wound up sending the series back to the Triangle, trailing by only 1 and earning the respect of their opponent. In Game 6, experience trumped heart, and the Devils held a 5-1 lead with under 3 minutes to play. It was at this moment that the team and community finally became one, and the Caniac Nation was truly born. Much like their team, the community refused to quit. When the chips were stacked against them, and in the face of adversity, the Caniac rose and let the world know that they had arrived. They did so by cheering for their team's effort with a standing ovation for a solid 3 minutes before the final horn sounded.
I think it showed the fans the character of the team and the character of the franchise.
It showed everybody that we could compete with the big bad New Jersey Devils.
You have to lose before you win. You have to learn how to win in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And that series was really a learning process for our team.
And the fans saw that, and they saw how hard it is to win, and they saw how series can turn, and I think it was a learning experience for everybody.
The fan support was tremendous, and I think even in the final game, I think everybody can tell you when we were losing and we were going to be eliminated, the support and the energy in that building from the fans, really went a long way to solidifying the relationship between the players and the fans in this market, in the sense of guys saying, I want to play for these people with that kind of support.
Going into the 01-02 season, the Hurricanes had a chip on their shoulders. They just had a bitter playoff series with New Jersey the season before, and they had formed a lasting bond with their Caniacs. They'd signed Stanley Cup champion, former All-Star goaltender Tom Barrasso for some assurance between the pipes, along with Artur Zerbe. And it was time for a power forward to get a chance, a young power forward for the first time in the show. His name, Erik Cole.
On his first shift, in his first ever NHL game, Erik Cole recorded his first NHL point.
It was a 2-on-1 with Martin Jelena, and just rifled a slapper off of Mike Richter's shoulder, and Ozelinch was jumping up in the play and was able to knock in a rebound.
The Hurricanes came flying out of the gates on what would be a milestone season in so many ways. During a bit of a yo-yo first half, which included a team record for ties, Ron Francis began collecting NHL milestones like points. In January against the Boston Bruins, playing in his 1,000th franchise game, Ronnie recorded his 500th NHL goal.
Score! Francis! Number 500! The Bruin lead cut to 3-1.
Also in January, Ron passed Ray Bourque for number 2 on the NHL all-time assist list.
Here's O'Neill closing, holding onto it, shooting one, he scores! yards, and that's it. And that'll be 1,170, and you can move over, Raymond Bourque.
You know, when I sit back and look, you know, I guess at all of them, for me, there's probably two, you know, that or maybe three that I'm most proud of. One is the fact that, you know, with the assist total, I finished second only to a guy by the name of Wayne Gretzky, which is, you know, for me, extremely special. Granted, I was a long way behind him, but still I was second. You know, and then the other two are probably the amount of 50-point seasons I was able to accumulate over my career and the amount of 20-goal seasons I was able to accumulate. And for no other reason than, you know, I think I pride myself on coming to work and work hard every night. And to accomplish those two things in my mind, you have to be consistent and you have to be able to, you know, to do things each and every season, each and every night, and I think that reflects more on the way I played, and as a result, I mean, those two are probably, you know, some of them I'm more proud of than the actual individual stuff.
While Ron was collecting these milestones, the team wasn't playing all that well. Deciding it was time to cut their losses, the Hurricanes dealt defenseman Sandis Oslynch to their division rival, Florida Panthers, in exchange for Brett Hedican and Kevin Adams. With the team struggling, the rumors in the media spread like a fungus.
There was a lot of rumors flying around the media that if we lost our next game in Florida, that Paul was going to be fired and, you know, changes were going to be made. And you know, it's a real tough week for the players, because when you hear that, and you know, as players, you respect your coach, which I think everybody in the organization did at that time in our locker room. You know, you don't want to be responsible for somebody else losing his job.
You know, it wasn't the coaching staff's fault. It was just a matter of getting on a roll. And I think we came back refreshed. And you know, we had some meetings within the locker room, and just the guys saying it's, you know, it's time to step up, and it's a good situation here, and let's not mess it up.
There was a lot of rumors going around that the coaching staff was under fire, and rightfully so. We were. The biggest thing about that game was that to watch how the players reacted to it, because we knew that they knew where we were. So it was interesting to watch how the players reacted to that situation and to come out with a big win in Florida.
Thankfully, the Hurricanes had time to take a break from the pressure of the NHL when the league stopped play to participate in the Olympic Games. Under the coaching of the late Herb Brooks, Tom Barrasso returned to the Triangle with a silver medal. Fans had very little time to get a glimpse of the Olympic hardware, as Tom would be traded to make room for goaltender Kevin Weeks, who came to the Hurricanes in a deal involving Chris Dingman and Shane Willis.
We had the chance to get Kevin Weeks, and we jumped on the opportunity, and he was a very good goalie for us.
The Olympic break was what the team needed, and results were immediate as they began to pile up points. 7 days after setting a single-season record for attendance, the Hurricanes clinched their second Southeast Division title on April 10th by downing the Tampa Bay Lightning 4-2.
Winning the division, I think, is a great accomplishment. You know, you have to win the division to learn how to win, to go on to win the conference, and then go on to win the cup.
Their first-round opponent was a familiar nemesis. It was 1 year later, and it was time for a rematch with New Jersey.
I don't care if you finish 50 points ahead of that team you're playing. It's a new ball game right now. And I think as a team, we really believe that.
New Jersey has been, they won a lot, and now it's our time.
With the Devils came the return of Scott Stevens. This time, though, the Hurricanes had an antidote for their opponent's captain in Eric Cole.
Being, you know, matched up against him every night and having to look across the ice and see that guy, and I had to keep on my toes, that's for sure. And I think that's part of what helped. I think it was just one of those challenges that, you know, it comes along, and I didn't want to be beaten, and I felt that if I could perform well against him, you know, he's kind of their catalyst, and you know, if I can perform well against their catalyst, and then maybe it'd be a spark for our club.
In Game 1, after Rod Brind'Amour got the Hurricanes on the board first, Eric Cole caught surefire Hall of Fame goaltender Marty Brodeur on a quick shot just inside the blue line, and the Devils were introduced to the BBC. The BBC was a line consisting of center Rod Brind'Amour and wingers Bates Battaglia and Eric Cole.
I think it was just that we just relished that role, that we could, you know, get the puck in another team's zone and just try and wear them down, and it worked.
Well, I just think we worked hard. I think, you know, we got some skill in there, but at the end of the day, we were just busting it, you know, trying to work harder than the other guys you're playing against, which you try to do every night, but it was a good combination.
You know, Eric Cole, on the other hand, everybody remembers, you know, him stepping up along with Roddy and Bates and that line, you know, being really critical to our success in the first round against New Jersey. You know, I've played a lot of games in this league, and to this day I've not seen anybody who is as explosive in the first 2-3 strides out of the block as Eric Cole is. And you know, when he is skating at full speed, it's pretty to watch, because not only is he fast, but he's powerful fast, which is you know, a neat combination to see. But certainly, you know, when you watch those two guys in that playoff round, you knew that they were going to be successful in this league for a long time.
The BBC line all of a sudden now became as effective as our first line, so it took a lot of pressure off of Ronnie's line, and the two lines together seemed to really feed off each other.
Leading the series 1-0, the Hurricanes wanted to keep control of the home ice advantage they had earned. Tied at 1 at the end of regulation, the Hurricanes would go into the first of many overtime games during this year's postseason. In the extra frame, it was the BBC again that came through.
Back, but it's kept by Malik in front. Oh, score on a deflection!
When the series shifted to New Jersey, the momentum shifted to the Devils. They controlled the Hurricanes in games 3 and 4, winning by a combined score of 7-1. Trying to spark his team in Game 4, Coach Paul Maurice pulled goaltenders Artur Zerbe in favor of Kevin Weeks. So the Canes lost the game. Kevin had played well enough to earn the starting nod for Game 5 back in Raleigh.
That was a tough call. I always had a lot of confidence in Kevin Weeks, but his size, I think, was starting to be an issue, because they were crashing the net so hard that we needed a bigger man in the net.
Game 5 was an epic battle of will between two teams refusing to give an inch. In a back-and-forth game of sheer determination, the Hurricanes found themselves down 2-1 with under a minute and a half to go. With Kevin Weeks on the bench, Jeff O'Neill found a lonesome puck at the doorstep and punched home the tying goal, to the elation of the Caniac Nation, and once again, we were heading to overtime. In the overtime, it was a game of chess, and who would be the first to show his queen? New Jersey went for checkmate with a flurry of heart-stopping shots, and Kevin Weeks came up with the series' most pivotal moment.
In front, Riche, what a stop! The rebound, what a save again! Kevin Weeks!
Kevin Weeks' save, I still don't know to this day how that puck didn't go in the net.
That was the biggest save I've probably seen and been a part of, just because of the timing of it and what it would have done had it gone the other way.
It was, I mean, it was just one of those things where you couldn't, you had to wait and kind of see it on replay again to see just, you know, how did he get a hold of that?
You knew that 9 times out of 10 that puck was going to go in the net, and you were just kind of frozen in time, and to see that glove come up and make the save, it was like, wow.
I think that save right there is probably one of the, you know, sickest save I ever seen.
You know, he makes that save, gives us a chance to win the series.
Shortly after the Weeks save, another impressive line combination that came to life in the playoffs, featuring Josef Wasacek, Yaroslav Swoboda, and Marty Jelena got to play hero.
There's one, Swoboda! Wasacek, score! Hey, what do you say? Josef Wasacek, and the Canes win Game 5!
In Game 6, with a chance to close out New Jersey and literally exercise their own playoff devils, the Hurricanes seized the moment. Kevin Weeks was spectacular again. How fitting that the man who was knocked out of the playoffs the previous season by a knockout hit was the man who had knocked the Devils out of the playoffs.
Well, you know, I think from the organization standpoint, it's huge anytime you get that sort of monkey off your back and get through. You know, obviously from a personal standpoint, you get knocked out of the series the year before, and you got to come back and go right through the same, you know, organization and players that knocked you out the year before. And to be able to do that and do it successfully and sort of as icing on the cap, score the game-winning goal that knocks him out in Game 6 is, you know, was gratifying.
With the first playoff series win in Hurricanes history, the team set their sights on their second-round opponent. The upstart Montreal Canadiens had surprised the heavily favored Boston Bruins in Round 1, beating them 4-2. The Canadiens have had the history of a team that has racked up over 20 Stanley Cup victories. Yet for the first time in the playoffs, the Hurricanes were looked upon as the favorites.
You got to prove yourself. You know, I think as an organization, as a player, as whatever. I mean, you got to just get things handed to you, and I think we've earned that now.
In Game 1, Ron Francis and Eric Cole provided all the scoring needed as Kevin Weeks recorded back-to-back shutouts. The pressure of going from underdogs to the favorite didn't seem to bother the Canes. Then came Game 2, led by their captain Saku Koivu, who had triumphantly returned late in the season after battling cancer all year long. The Canadians delivered the Hurricanes their first home loss of the playoffs, 4-1. In Game 3 in Montreal, tied at 1 at the end of regulation in the unfriendly confines of the Molson Center, the Hurricanes got caught napping, and Donald Audette made them pay by sliding one past Kevin Weeks and giving the Canadians a 2-1 series lead.
So that was our first overtime loss, and I had never experienced something like that before, like the highs and the lows of it all. And it's a game, we put a lot of emphasis on Game 4. Like, we needed to even it up.
In Game 4, the lack of scoring on Montreal's Jose Theodore and the pressure of being down in the series seemed to have gotten the better of the Hurricanes. By the start of the second period, the team was down 2-0. Playing like the Vezina Trophy winner and the eventual Hart Trophy winner he would become that year, Theodore refused to give the Canes an inch. In the Hurricanes locker room, Captain Ron Francis flexed his leadership.
I remember sitting in the locker room in the Forum in a critical game, and at the first period, kind of give this long speech about how, hey, we just got to throw everything at them, about the kitchen sink, and just keep firing shots, and see what we're going to get.
And he was one of the first guys that said, even if this series gets to 3-1, he's like, there's no way we're going to lose to this team.
With the team needing a different approach, goaltender Artur Zerbe returned to mind the pipes.
Archie came in and, he stabilized us. We didn't have a great second period either, and he made some big saves for us and kept us in it, really.
Even after Ron's speech and a new-looking goal, the Hurricanes still trailed 3-0 going into the third period. Ron's call to throw everything but the kitchen sink at Theodore became,
I guess the only thing we got left is a kitchen sink. Let's just try throwing that.
He ended up telling us, let's just go throw out the kitchen sink at him and, see what we can do.
In the third period, that's exactly what they did. Even with all they were throwing at Theodore, the Hurricanes still couldn't get through without a break. That break came in the form of a power play that turned into a two-man advantage when Montreal head coach Michel Therrien disputed the call. Sean Hill took advantage of the power play, and he would be the first to break through on a blast just past the face-off circle.
You could feel something that night. You really could. You doubted that it could happen on some level internally, but also the overriding feeling was, something good's going to happen here, and it did.
Therrien was arguing the call to the point where we gave us the 5-on-3, and I remember thinking to myself, here's our chance.
Bates Battaglia tallied the next marker with just over 7 minutes to go. Then, with Artur Zerbe on the bench and the extra attacker on the ice, the Canes literally crashed the nets. And with just under a minute to go in the game, Eric Cole picked up some loose change in front of the net and deposited through the hearts of the Canadians. Once again, the Hurricanes were heading into extra frames. This time, Fortune was wearing red and white. Off a Jeff O'Neill face-off win, the puck found its way out of the stick of a defenseman who threw the puck at the net, and Mr. Overtime was born.
Make believe! The Carolina Hurricanes have tied the series!
That game, the Molson Miracle, as it's been dubbed, was a miracle. I cannot believe to this day that we came back and won that game.
That game was the clear sign of a team that knew what it took to win.
To see a guy who works hard like he does to get that reward was a great feeling, and who wouldn't be excited for a guy like Nicky?
Obviously, you can go back and you think about that year, the playoffs. People are all in Mr. Overtime and stuff. It gives you a little, goosebumps.
With the win, the Hurricanes had tied the series and were headed back to the Triangle with new momentum. Jose Theodore had been a wall the entire series, but when the Hurricanes found a weakness in that wall, it came tumbling down.
For some reason, I never felt that we were in trouble against Montreal at any time in that series.
The Hurricanes closed out the Canadians in short order in games 5 and 6, outscoring the Habs by a combined score of 13-3, beating them 5-1 on Mother's Day in Raleigh, during the Mother's Day Massacre, then setting or tying 18 franchise records as the team closed out the series by unloading on the Habs in Game 6, 8-2. The Hurricanes had won their second straight playoff series and were playing in their first ever Eastern Conference Championship for the right to play for a chance at the Stanley Cup. The opponent, the Toronto Maple Leafs. In their playoff run, the Leafs were coming off two hard-fought 7-game series against the New York Islanders and the Ottawa Senators. The Maple Leafs were the talk of the town and the jewel of Canada with a nation's hope upon them. The Hurricanes found themselves back in the role of underdog, a role they had learned to relish.
And I can remember Roddy turning to me, and he's like, "There's no way it's going to be this easy next series. It's like we gotta be ready for this one." He's like, "It's going to be totally different," and it was.
I think everybody sort of didn't give us a chance, and that was sort of fine with us. I think it's a lot easier to play, at that point without the realization that, hey, we're supposed to win this, or we have pressure to win this, and our guys just believed in each other in that locker room. We sort of had some special karma going at the time, and we said, let's just keep going with this.
I know most people picked Toronto to beat us. I had no doubt in my mind we were going to beat Toronto.
Game 1 was a tight battle that featured the return of Gary Roberts to the Triangle, a place where he had resurrected his career. Throughout the playoffs, Roberts had reinserted himself into becoming the opposition's game plan as a force to be reckoned with. As it was with Scott Stevens, the role of neutralization fell upon the shoulders of rookie Eric Cole.
He took it upon himself to try and, eliminate me as a catalyst. It just seemed like every game it grew more as just how many licks I could get in on Robs compared to how many he'd get in on me.
Game 1 went to Toronto by the score of 2-1. In Game 2, knowing they had to even the score, the Hurricanes climbed atop the shoulders of Artur Zerbe, who had come back with a vengeance and was very stingy in the crease as he went save for save with Toronto's Curtis Joseph.
Arthur's was one of those guys that he was very confident in his abilities, but he also backed it up.
RC, what was it? I think for how small a guy he was and how he just had that weird style and that ugly equipment, he was just a great goaltender for us.
The goaltending was exceptional. It was fun for a former goalie to sit and watch those two battle it out, and Zerbe won the battle.
In a very defensive game, with both teams refusing to give an inch, overtime was once again in the cards. Overtime is a place for unlikely heroes to emerge, but for Nicholas Pauline, this overtime thing was becoming routine.
Shoot the puck, that's what Maurice said that back, all the coaches I had told us to shoot the puck, so that's what I'm doing.
Game 3 is one that will always be fondly recalled by Caniacs for years to come because these types of games come along only once in a while. Early in the game, the Hurricanes' leading scorer and top-line sniper Jeff O'Neill took a puck in the eye. Refusing to go into the locker room, the Hurricanes trainers battled the swelling all night long.
When O got hit with that puck, everyone was just like, "Oh no, that man's face is made of leather." I've seen him get hit in the face with a lot of pucks other than that, and he's never cut open. It's unbelievable. Had he left that game, I think that series would have been a lot different for us.
With the game, another goaltending duel, and the team knotted at 1 at the end of regulation, the series saw another overtime game. What a dramatic storybook finish. On a rush from one end to the other, Ron Francis, with his stick tied up, made an amazing kicking pass to a wide-open Jeff O'Neill, who with one eye drilled one past Curtis Joseph to give the Hurricanes the win, and in doing so became the eye of the Hurricane.
Well, that was Jeff O'Neill. He played to win, and he was going to win at all costs. But, the overtime goal, I can see it as clear as can be. The play that Ronnie Francis made was a spectacular play to O'Neill, and O'Neill put it away, and on we went.
In Game 4, Artur Zerbe stood on his head and propelled the Hurricanes to a 3-0 win with a chance to close out Toronto on their home ice in Game 5. So moved by their team's refusal to listen to the critics and never say die despite great odds, the Caniac Nation decided to show their appreciation for the Hurricanes, and another tradition was born. When the team's plane arrived at the airport in the wee hours of the night, they were greeted by hundreds of screaming fans.
Initially, we kind of started joking a little bit about it, like, hey, there'll be people waiting at the airport for us when we get back, after our first play at Victory. And, I don't know when the first time it actually showed up, but there was some people there, and then, next thing you know, there was, 4 people, and then there was 10 people, and then there was, 20 people, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger.
And, you get 2,000 to 3,000 people at the airport, going bananas, and it's a great feeling.
Going into Game 5, the Triangle was electric, with the possibilities that could be played out in their backyard. In Canada, during a holiday weekend, hundreds of Toronto fans made their way south to Raleigh in hopes of catching their team in action. What they experienced was true Southern hospitality and another Caniac tradition that was introduced to the NHL, hockey tailgating.
We taught them about tailgating at hockey games.
I think it started to create that identity that I know our fans cherish, that this is a loud building and it's a great atmosphere to play hockey in.
And the tailgating is just a perfect Southern marriage between the way Southerners, their reverence for sports, and the NHL. And people were coming out with portable swimming pools and plopping them down the parking lot so they could, sunbathe and play in the water and eat and drink in copious quantities until the game starts. I mean, where else does that happen?
In Game 5, it was Curtis Joseph's turn to play hero and blanked the Hurricanes 1-0. A return trip to Toronto was booked. Game 6 was another goaltender's duel, and going into the third period, there were no marks on the scoreboard. Then halfway through the period, Jeff O'Neill finally broke through, and the Canes were poised to take the series with a 1-0 lead.
By Joseph, they score!
Champagne was chilling on ice with under a minute to go when the hockey gods had their say and said, "Not so fast." With 22 seconds remaining in the game and Curtis Joseph on the bench, Captain Matt Sundin tied the game at 1. The Hurricanes were heading into their 7th overtime game of the playoffs. 8 minutes into the extra frame, Josef Wasacek battled in the corner and threw the puck out in front of the net, where Marty Jelena was waiting with faith on his stick.
Carolina Hurricanes are going to the Stanley Cup Finals.
The oxygen was sucked out of the Air Canada Centre, and the Hurricanes were headed to the Stanley Cup Final.
One thing I remember is just the sound of that arena. I love listening to the sound of that arena when that happened, just how quiet it is, and all you can hear is our guys, whooping it up. That's a special moment. It really is.
The Hurricanes, in only their 5th season in North Carolina, were the Eastern Conference champions, and they brought the Prince of Wales trophy home and shared it with the airport Caniacs.
I remember coming off the plane, and we spent probably an hour and a half that night just walking around signing autographs for the fans and letting them touch the trophy and be a part of it and experience it, because I think that's what sort of makes our sport different than most. When you win the cup like that, the beauty of it is not running away and hiding with it, but sharing it with the people that help support you and get you to that point. So just a great tradition that the people started, and exciting memory of my playing days here in Raleigh.
Their opponent in the final was the near all-star team in the Detroit Red Wings. And for an organization with such ties to Detroit, the time was right to sever the ties of the past.
Everybody thought that this series here was, Detroit was going to walk away with it. And going into that game there, we had a lot of confidence in ourselves that, you go into that rink and against a team that's had the success that they've had, it was a little bit, tough.
It was almost insulting, to be there, and nobody was really, giving us any chance whatsoever.
Well, that's the way it was. Us virtually against the world is how we really took it, because they did virtually have an all-star team, and we knew that it was going to be very difficult.
It was a tall mountain to climb, but I personally felt we had a chance to win.
A chance is exactly what the Hurricanes had, and then some. In Game 1, with everyone expecting Detroit to walk away in 4 straight, the Hurricanes seized the moment. Playing in their 8th overtime game of the playoffs, Ron Francis shocked the Motor City.
In front, shot, score! Ronnie Francis! And Carolina has won Game 1 in overtime, 3-2.
always sort of a dream of mine to get this franchise to the finals and be able to win the cup. And you know, that was sort of the first step in that process. It was a very exciting time, and you know, I think it sort of gave us the belief that, hey, you know, we can do this. As stacked as their lineup was, and you know, a lot of talented names and big names, and so-called hockey town, you know, against the so-called non-hockey market, you know, it gave us that spark, I think, that we needed, that, hey, we have a chance.
I remember the satisfaction of walking out of that building, which was very quiet, and the looks on the faces of the Red Wings fans, who at that point, they were pretty confident in their team. That was really satisfying for me, for sure. I know my dad was satisfied that night, and it was a great experience to be in the Stanley Cup Finals and to win that first game.
In Game 2, with the score tied at 1, Marty Jelena was called for interference, and the vaulted Red Wings offense went on the attack and scored the game winner. The series then shifted to North Carolina, where the rabid Caniacs, after enjoying a football-sized tailgate party, filled the RBC Center to the brim and literally shook the building on its moorings, reaching decibel levels of over 137. What a game it was. Josef Wasacek got the Hurricanes on the board first on a pass by Marty Jelena. Igor Larionov and the Red Wings struck back a period later and knotted the score at 1. In the third period, the Hurricanes took the lead when Jeff O'Neill lit the lamp. With under a minute and a half to go, the Hurricanes were controlling the play and seemingly headed towards a 2-1 series lead. Then Brett Hull tipped destiny off a Nicholas Lidstrom shot, and a 9th trip to overtime was on deck. Through 2.5 overtime periods, the Caniac Nation nervously stood, willing their team towards victory. On this night, however, victory was on the stick of 42-year-old Igor Larionov, and at 14:47 of the 6th period, way past midnight, the Cinderella story ended, and Prince Stanley, for all intents and purposes, was headed to Michigan.
When they won it in the third overtime, it was like all the air went out of us. But if we had won that game, it would have been really difficult for the Red Wings, because all the pressure in the world was on their shoulders at that point in time.
It's painful to talk about, because it was so close, and I think it could have gone the other way.
After losing, you know, and you know, you play so hard for so long, and you come up empty, and it's a very difficult, you know, feeling in your stomach and, you know, in your heart.
That's what hockey's about. That's why it's such a, I think it's a great game, because you just never know, these split-second things that just change the whole outlook of not just a game, but your chance of winning a championship. Could have been on that, you know, little play right there. And, I truly believe had we had won that game, it'd been different.
The Hurricanes lost the series in 5, but anyone who participated or watched this series know that though history will reflect it as an easy victory for Detroit, it was anything but. As the Red Wings were enjoying the fruits of their labor, the Hurricanes were getting their just desserts as well. The Caniac Nation refused to let the Hurricanes hang their heads and held a downtown Raleigh pep rally that drew over 10,000 fans. In the offseason, Ron Francis was awarded the Lady Byng and the King Clancy trophies, and General Manager Jim Rutherford was named Executive of the Year. Heading into that year's draft with a very low pick and some holes in the lineup that needed filling, Jim Rutherford and his team decided that a young goaltender out of Alberta would be a good fit for the team. With the 25th overall pick, Cam Ward became a Hurricanes player.
Well, Sheldon Ferguson and his staff was adamant about Cam Ward. Some people thought that Cam Ward was a second-round pick. Our staff followed him and knew him inside out, and felt very strong about him being a first-round pick.
I was very fortunate that to be able to go where I did in the 25th overall. Went higher than expected, but I was extremely excited to be drafted by the Carolina Hurricanes, especially after the season that they had, and knowing that they went to the Stanley Cup and the bright future that the team and the organization has, and to be able to be a part of that is something special.
The 02-03 season was a disappointment, as the Hurricanes battled injury, fatigue, and team chemistry, and would never find the mojo that brought them to the Stanley Cup final. They would fail to qualify for postseason play.
you know, when you have a season like we had, in the length of the season that we had, that the next season was going to be a tough situation, because now all of a sudden now you're looked at as the second best team in the league, even though maybe on paper we weren't.
There was a little misperception there as to where the team really was and where it was going. It certainly shouldn't have been a team that dropped as far as it did the following year, but we had many, many injuries that we had to deal with. We had that perception of us being a great team when we were really only a good team. And quite frankly, by the end of December, which is pretty early in the season, it looked pretty bleak.
One of the interesting sidelines of the 02-03 campaign was how many young players got a chance to showcase their talents for the Caniac Nation. In record-setting fashion, 5 Hurricanes players made their NHL debut, and 5 Hurricanes players scored their first NHL goal. Jeff Harima, Thomas Kirka, Mike Zigomanis, Brad Defoe, and Damian Surma all made their NHL mark in Carolina red and white. With every step back within this organization, there is a step forward, and that step came to the Hurricanes in the postseason draft.
Ultimately, that horrible season turned into Eric Stahl, and so sometimes you have to take a step back to take a few steps forward, and that's what happened.
Obviously, I was completely thrilled being picked second overall. You know, it was exciting to get on stage and, you know, shake everyone's hand. I didn't know too much about Raleigh or the area around here, but, you know, I knew I was going to be given a chance to play in the NHL, and I was excited about that.
Going into the 03-04 season, the Hurricanes had an air of a team rebuilding. Eric Stahl, who was originally not projected to jump right into the NHL, earned his way onto the team by leading the league in preseason scoring. Though Eric made the team, he was not ready yet to make an impact, and the Hurricanes' upper management sensed that the team was ready to go in a different direction. Coach Paul Maurice had been with the organization from Detroit, through Hartford, on to Greensboro, and home in Raleigh. And making a decision to go in a new direction was not an easy task.
It's a shame that we had to let him go, but sometimes you need to make changes. Paul's a great, great person.
Clearly, the toughest decision I had to make in my position in professional hockey to make a coaching change. I really did not believe in my heart that it was the coach that was the reason our team wasn't winning. But I also looked at the number of years that Paul was here, what he had gone through, and felt that maybe a change would be good for the players.
With every door that closes, one opens, and the Hurricanes were looking for a coach that was going to bring a totally new approach to the team. Peter Laviolette had made his mark wherever he has been in the minors, in the NHL with the Boston Bruins first as an assistant, and then with the New York Islanders leading the team back into the playoffs as their head coach. With an open opportunity after the Islanders let Peter go, Peter Karmanos and Jim Rutherford pursued the American-born coach.
Peter brought a sense of enthusiasm and positiveness that we had lacked before that. I used to say to Paul, sometimes it looks like we're playing not to lose. I'd much rather play to win, and Peter plays to win.
I wanted to change the style of play we had, and, you know, really show the players that we were making a change. And I didn't know Peter at all. I knew who he was. I watched his teams play. I really liked the way the Islanders played when we played against them when Peter Laviolette was the coach.
Jim had the faith and the confidence to give me an opportunity here in Carolina. And, you know, I owe a lot to Jim for taking that chance with me.
With every change in management, there comes an adjustment period for the players.
It was tough because I think we all felt responsible. You know, I know personally it was like, you know, had you just done a little better, you know, this guy's life wouldn't have been affected.
I think when Lavi came in, like, it was, you know, he came in and it was just so much change in such a short amount of time, and we were kind of overhauling the system, and it was a lot to kind of take in, you know, right in the middle of a season.
Coming in and taking over a team in mid-season and right around the first of the year is a difficult thing to do. You know, we didn't make the playoffs that year, but I think the end of that year, if you go back and look at it, I think our team started to establish an identity that followed through the next time that we played hockey.
Another move on the coaching front came with the hiring of Jeff Daniels as an assistant coach. JD was a very popular player who knew his role on the ice and always thought through the game off the ice. As the team adjusted to a new style of play under coach Peter Laviolette, a labor dispute off the ice was headed towards a stalemate between the owners group and the NHLPA. On the ice, the Hurricanes brought a coveted player into the fold when they traded defenseman Danny Markov for a young forward named Justin Williams.
Williams scored!
It was different for me coming to Carolina. You know, on one hand, at the time, I was leaving a team that was, you know, challenging for the Stanley Cup to Carolina, which was down in the lower part of the league at the time. Things in a funny way of working out sometimes. That you know, coming to a team that that wanted me a lot and gave me every opportunity to succeed. And you know, it's funny how things just sometimes fall into place, and you know, I couldn't have asked for a better situation to come into.
In March, Kevin Adams broke a franchise record when he scored his 5th shorthanded goal of the season to beat the Thrashers in overtime with less than a second to go. As the season ended, with the Hurricanes failing to qualify for the postseason, the team gave their captain in the face of the franchise, Ron Francis, one last shot at the Stanley Cup by trading him to the cup-contending Toronto Maple Leafs. After the playoffs were played out, the eyes of the NHL turned to the Triangle when the Hurricanes hosted one of the NHL's premier events, the NHL Entry Draft.
Well, what I like about the league coming here with the draft is a lot of people that never took the time to come to our market got to see what the market was like. They got to experience our fans. I've been going to drafts for years, and I know I'm a little bit biased, but that was clearly the most exciting draft I've ever been at, and it was because of our fans.
Well, I was absolutely amazed in '04 when we had almost 16,000 people show up that first draft day, and they really became, I think, super hockey fans on steroids when we got the draft here in '04, and since then it's been Katie bar the door. We need a bigger arena.
What a tremendous success that was. I think we had more people here than ever for an NHL draft.
I really do think that bringing the draft and hopefully in the not too distant future an all-star game here really puts another feather in this region's market, this region's cap.
Combined with the festivities of the Caniac Carnival, the draft was a huge success for the NHL and showed the world that Raleigh and the Triangle was indeed a big league city. Filled to capacity with 15,672 Caniacs, the largest draft crowd in over a decade, the NHL considered the draft in the Triangle one of its best ever. The Hurricanes made their fans even happier by wheeling and dealing with the Columbus Blue Jackets to move up to the 4th overall selection. Then they picked forward Andrew Ladd. As the lights of the draft went down, so did the prospects of a full season in 04-05. After many difficult meetings, and with no sign of a deal in place, the unthinkable happened in the NHL. On February 16th of 2005, NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman announced that the season would be canceled.
Accordingly, I have no choice but to announce the formal cancellation of play for 2004-2005.
This is a very unfortunate day for the game of hockey, the Carolina Hurricanes and the National Hockey League. Well, the lockout was a necessity to our league because we were in such financial trouble.
It was, in a lot of respects, good for our franchise. You hate to say that when you're talking about the league being shut down, but we needed some stability as an organization financially, and to a certain degree that was achieved through the lockout. It's a shame that it took a year of play away from the National Hockey League, but the thought was that we needed to achieve long-term stability as a league, and for our franchise that was important.
There's an old saying that says it's always darkest before the dawn. That's certainly the case during the NHL lockout season when that year was eventually canceled. But some great things were happening within the organization. Eric Staal was given a chance to continue his development in Lowell at the American Hockey League level. The same could be said for Cam Ward. They shared that team with Calgary, and the Hurricanes management had a chance to go there, watch them play, and get to know a new player. His name, Mike Commodore, who they eventually traded for.
It was just a chance to develop even further. I think, getting those opportunities to be on the ice a lot, helps your confidence again, and confidence is a big thing in sports, and it is in hockey for sure. And
Well, it really helped Cam Ward and Eric Staal. I believe that was probably the best thing for Eric's development. So there were some positive things for it. I would not like to see it happen again. I'd not like to see it happen to any business, but it's behind us now, and that's where it should be.
On July 22nd, NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman announced that the league and the NHLPA had ratified an agreement on a new collective bargaining agreement, and the NHL was back with a vengeance, with some newly tweaked rules and the addition of the NHL shootout to decide games.
Coming back from the work stoppage presented two opportunities for our teams. One, the rule changes, the officiating standard change was really a way to open up the game to emphasize speed and skill, scoring chances, and simply make the game more entertaining. The partnership that we forged with the players that included a salary cap meant that all of our teams had the opportunity to be both economically stable and competitive.
The game was better than it was before. The product is better. Now I think there's a little more input, and we're trying to both work to make the game better for the people that are watching it, which is what it should be.
With the signing of a new CBA came the frenzy of gearing up for the new season and in securing new additions to the team in the form of free agents. The Hurricanes avoided the pitfalls of getting into any waging wars for players like Peter Forsberg and Paul Kariya, and instead set their sights on impact players that fit Peter Laviolette's system. The free agents signed were guys who kind of sailed below the radar, but were key players in their past team successes. Matt Cullen, Martin Gerber, Ray Whitney, and Corey Stillman.
Hartford tried to trade for me, Carolina tried to trade for me. I figured that would be a spot to come to. They wanted me for 4 or 5 years, and it was an opportunity to come and bring my game here.
When I signed here, I didn't really know much about the team, and then when I got down here, I was pleasantly surprised with what they had, what they had in place already down here. Other than myself, there were no real big jerks, So I mean, if you can only have one on a team, that's good. Yeah, you only need one guy to cut everybody down, and then everybody else to build them up. So any more than that, you'll have an issue. But I think just having one is good.
With the team set on paper, it was time to go to work on the ice. With the absence of Ron Francis in the locker room, who had announced his retirement from play at the start of the season, the Hurricanes needed a new leader, and Rod Brind'Amour was named team captain.
It was a big honor for me, and it still is. I mean, I cherish that role, and I try every day to live up to it.
With the team leadership set and everyone feeling pretty good going into training camp, the Hurricanes were still widely looked upon as more likely a cellar dweller and picked to finish as one of the worst teams in the league by the mass media.
And I remember getting in a discussion with the press saying, why don't you just let us play 10 games before you tell us that we're a last place team.
We've just added such good players that are good people. And when I talk about, they don't care if their names are in lights or they're getting all this recognition, they just want to win. And that's what was awesome about the guys they brought in, and that's the guys we have here.
Once I saw the personnel that was here and we started playing, and even the preseason games, I was like, oh, we're not bad.
We felt like we could compete with anybody and beat anybody in the National Hockey League.
People don't think we're a good team, and you have a lot to prove. And the only way to do that is to win, night in, night out.
At the start of the year, we had believed in ourselves as a group that it was us against the world again.
That us against the world mentality and a true family experience was what Peter Laviolette wanted in his locker room.
That stuff goes a long way, and regardless of what job you're in, but if you enjoy, if it starts with knowing, if you know the people that you're working with and going to be around for 8, 9, 10 months of the year, it helps to know them and get to know them, and then hopefully like them. More often than not, you end up liking them, and and it goes a long way.
Just go play. Just go do what you have to do to win. And I believe that players play better when they're relaxed.
The Hurricanes came out of the blocks firing on all cylinders, and right from training camp you could see they were a team many people had grossly underrated, going 5-3-1 in the preseason and gaining an air of confidence going into the regular season. The team started the season on the road in Tampa against the division rival Lightning as they were witness to the raising of the Lightning's Stanley Cup Championship banner, a sight they would not soon forget. With the Lightning fired up after raising the banner, the Hurricanes would fall 5-2. Martin Gerber would tweak his groin in the game, and when the Canes played their first home scheduled game, their opening night goaltender would be rookie Cam Ward. The opponent, the Pittsburgh Penguins, led by NHL legend and Hall of Famer Mario Lemieux, and legend in waiting, the highly coveted Sidney Crosby. With the Caniac Nation raring to go after a year without hockey, the team followed suit. Eric Stahl broke through in the first to give the Canes the lead, giving clue that this year would be his. Corey Stillman then showed the Caniacs why the team had wanted him so badly. Going into the third period, Cam Ward, who had been outstanding in his debut, nonetheless gave up the tying goal to Ziggy Palffy with under a minute and a half left to play. After a back-and-forth overtime period, the first ever shootout came to the Triangle, and the fans got to sample the new flavors of the NHL for the first time. As if playing in your first NHL game isn't tense enough for a young netminder, Cam Ward faced the daunting task of facing the potent mix of Ziggy Palffy, Sidney Crosby, and Mario Lemieux.
Lemieux and his greatness on the rookie Ward. Here we go. Cam Ward says no!
With Mario failing to score, Corey Stillman puts the Canes ahead with a goal.
He goes back and he scores! And he kept it along the ice.
Next up for Pittsburgh, the veteran sniper, Ziggy Palffy.
Ward. Here comes Palffy. A great look here. Palffy. Forced wide by Cam Ward.
After Ward denied Palffy, all the Canes needed was for Matt Cullen to convert, and the game would be over. Sebastian Caron, however, makes the save.
Oh, it's Heavy Caron shouldered away.
Fittingly enough, the final shot pits coveted rookie versus coveted rookie, as Sidney Crosby becomes Pittsburgh's last hope.
Here he comes on Cam Ward. Sid the Kid shut down by Cam Ward. Carolina wins in a shootout.
He's got ice in his veins, and I think that speaks for itself right there, that he's cool, calm, collected, you know, in the net.
To have your first NHL start, to be your home opener, you know, I couldn't ask for a better moment and an opportunity, and to have Mario Lemieux, Zygmunt Palffy, who had a tremendous career too, and the uproar of Sidney Crosby. It was just obviously a dream come true.
That was the sign right there that we were moving in the right direction, and it's fun. It's fun for anyone being a hero, and that night I was one of them.
It all came together almost in the first game and then just carried over to a great season.
With their first win, the Hurricanes were off and running. Eric Stahl becomes the organization's first player since Mike Rogers of the Whalers to win Player of the Month honors from the NHL. In October, the Hurricanes really come together as a team in a wild back-and-forth game against the Philadelphia Flyers.
The game against Philadelphia wasn't a coach's dream, but it was probably one of the most exciting games that you'd ever want to be a part of. It set the tone, I think, for the fans to create the excitement of this team is fun to watch. They're fun to come to the rink and see what they can do, and we provided, I think, a lot of entertainment for our fans, and the building started to fill up on a regular basis. The wins continued to come, and now you've got some momentum as the season builds on.
Coach Laviolette is named the head coach for Team USA for the 2006 Olympic Games in Turin, Italy. In January, the Hurricanes become only the 7th team in NHL history to record 13 wins in a single month, capped off by a 9-game win streak, their second 9-game win streak of the season. In January, the organization took the time to recognize one of their own.
A player like Ron Francis comes along once a generation, so you know, you just plan to do something special for someone with those kind of credentials that played for your team.
We were very proud to be part of Ronnie's career, and proud to be able to retire his number and keep him with the organization.
You always want to play in the NHL and you always want to win the Stanley Cup, but you never think you're going to have that career that your number is going to go in a rafter and nobody else is going to wear it. So when that call came, it was very special. You know, the whole night I thought from start to finish, Mary and I've often talked about that, and having Mary Lou and Caitlin, the kids on the ice, my family, friends, the ceremony was perfect. You play this game and it's a fun game and it's a sport, and nights like that make you realize that you're very fortunate to meet a lot of great people along the way, and people that you can call friends, and that makes that night like that even more special.
As we closed out 2005, and with the Hurricanes already leading the Southeast and among the league leaders, Peter Karmanos and Jim Rutherford decided to add a little bit more firepower to an already potent lineup.
We were able to add Doug Waite as insurance to try and get to the playoffs. In fact, it took him a while to even catch up with our team. We were such a fast team.
At that point in time, from my point of view, it was perception. I'm telling the players, guys, we have a great team and we're going to make it even better, and we have a chance to win.
When somebody of Doug Waite's impact comes into a locker room of a successful team, it makes a statement that you want to win.
And when you have guys that are able to check the ego at the door and, hey, we're going to win, and I don't care if I don't get the minutes or I don't get the ice time that I want. And it's tough when you've played a long time and you've been accustomed to that. But he wanted to win more than, put up numbers and do this. He wanted to hold the cup.
With February came the NHL's participation in the Olympic Games. Joining Coach Laviolette in Turin were Doug Waite, Brett Hedican, Matt Cullen, and Eric Cole. Rounding out the other Hurricanes Olympians were from Switzerland, goaltender Martin Gerber, from the Czech Republic, defenseman Frank Kaberla, and from Canada, center Eric Stahl. Heading into March, the Canes were neck and neck with Ottawa and Detroit and challenging for the President's Trophy. And all things were seemingly headed in the right direction until a devastating moment in Pittsburgh. In a 7-5 victory in which he scored the game-winning goal, and with that game out of reach for the Penguins, Eric Cole was hit from behind by Brooks Orpik, launching him into the boards and down to the ice with a broken neck.
At the time, if somebody had asked me when that happened, I would have said he was the best power forward in the National Hockey League.
To have that happen, not just have it happen, but the timing in the game and where the game was at, it was just so meaningless in the sense that that we had been running away with it, and it was certainly it's frustrating that I feel like I was just starting to play like my best hockey of my career, and now I'm struggling, or working towards getting back there again. Like it's kind of tough to think that you're just about there, or you're there, and then you get set back quite a ways. And so, but it's it's something that you just kind of have to deal with, and it's life, and everything's not going to be perfect. So you just kind of have to deal with it and learn how to deal with it, and just try and keep going.
To keep going is exactly what they had to do, and 5 days after the Orpik hit, the Hurricanes made another move in hopes of filling the void left behind by Eric's injury when they traded for veteran winger Mark Recchi.
For him to come in our room, for guys that had any doubts about what it took and whether we were serious about winning a cup, it was that perception of bringing in Mark Recchi to strengthen our team.
By the end of March, the Hurricanes were on cruise control, heading towards the postseason. On March 31st, playing against the Florida Panthers, the Hurricanes clinched their third Southeast Division title, the first team that year to clinch their division. On the last game of the season, with the Hurricanes having a chance of being the regular season Eastern Conference champions, playing against the Buffalo Sabres, the team laid an egg and lost 4-0. Sensing the team needed a reminder of what they had played for all season long, Peter Laviolette and the Hurricanes coaching staff felt they had come up with the perfect mantra everyone in the organization could grab hold of. A reminder that to get where they wanted to be, the team needed to do whatever it takes.
Well, by the last month of the season, we were putting along. And I was really worried, and I thought, we could really have a tough time in the playoffs.
Even though we were confident, the wins weren't coming as easy. The game wasn't being played quite the way we wanted or we were playing earlier in the year.
One thing about Lavi is that he's very organized. He's very detail-oriented. He doesn't leave anything go by. So right before the playoffs started, about maybe 2 weeks before, he came in and said to Jeff and I that, we got to do something different. I want something that the players can focus on come playoff time.
Kevin McCarthy deserves a lot of credit for the phrase. He came up with it, and whatever it takes is pretty simple. It is what it says. You're going to be asked to do things for this team to be successful. This is not an individual sport. It is a team sport. Asking every player to commit to that and do whatever it took on their part that we asked of them, if they would commit to that, that would be the best chance for our group to be successful.
Whatever it takes, for each individual, it's different. And, for me, personally, it was something that, you take to heart.
I think it, gave everyone a chance to realize that, we're going into a special thing right now. We're going into a playoffs with a great team.
The matchup was set, and the number 2 seeded Carolina Hurricanes were set to face a familiar playoff opponent in the league's most storied franchise, the Montreal Canadiens. Maybe it was hubris. Maybe it was the fact that the Hurricanes had not played a meaningful game since March, and the Canadiens had been fighting for their playoff life. But whatever it was an ugly result in Game 1, as the Hurricanes were blown off the ice in a 6-1 loss.
We weren't taking them lightly or anything, but they came to play the first 2 games here, and we didn't, and we got spanked.
In Game 2, the Hurricanes began to return to form and played a better game, but not much better. Slagged by an illness that caused him to lose a few pounds, Martin Gerber was not the same goaltender who had won 38 regular season games. After giving up 3 in the first, Coach Laviolette elected to give his rookie netminder a chance. After a seesaw battle with the lead changing hands 3 times, and with 1.5 minutes to go in the game and trailing by 1, Corey Stillman tied the game to send it to overtime. In overtime, both goaltenders knuckled in a bit and came away with goose eggs through the first OT period. In the second overtime period, just 2.5 minutes in, Michael Ryder nails a slap shot past Ward, and the Hurricanes were headed to Montreal in a hole, trailing in the series 2-0.
We knew that it was going to be very difficult, but we knew that we could do it.
That was really an eye-opener is what it was. Just like that, we were down 2-0. We had to step it up come Game 3.
Going into Game 3, Coach Laviolette made the decision to give his rookie netminder a shot in goal in one of the most intimidating buildings in the NHL, north of the RBC Center.
What we wrestled with, I think, was the fact that Marty Gerber won a lot of games, and we're going into a third game where we're down 0-2. Who are we going to put in net?
I remember we landed in Montreal. We went to the the hotel, and just before I got in the elevator, Lavi pulled me aside and said, "I'll be going in Game 3." And just a full grin came on my face, and I knew that this was my time, this was my moment, and I was ready for it.
Cam Ward came in and calmly denied shot after shot from the Montreal offense. With each save, the team grew more and more confident that Ward literally had their backs. However, in the second period, Montreal broke through the Cam Ward wall when Richard Zednik put one into the mesh. Going into the third period, the Canes were down by 1, facing a 3-0 series deficit, and Cristobal Huet was matching Cam Ward, save for save. Midway through the third, Captain Rod Brind'Amour led by example and got on his horse and scored a very Rod Brind'Amour-like goal.
Well, I talked about making plays. I think we were down 1-0, but and Hetty, I think it was Hetty, cross-ice pass. Things like, you got to make plays. You can't just look to dump it off the glass, because if he does that like we do, there's nothing happens. We lose that game. But he threw a pass, zipped it across. It was a little ahead of me. I just chased it down and was able to kind of get it. It wasn't a good shot. I think it might have deflected off the defense or something. It goes in, but now we're right where we want to be.
It's a credit, in my mind, to our captain, Rod Brind'Amour. For me, it's the most important goal in the playoffs, because if we lose that game, we'll probably lose in the first round.
Once again, the Hurricanes were heading to extra frames versus the Canadiens. In overtime, Tomas Plekanec was nailed for hooking, and the Hurricanes had a golden opportunity on the power play. When opportunity knocks, Eric Stahl always likes to answer the door. He ripped a slap shot past Huet, and the Canes had cut the series in half.
Eric Stahl has scored! She's a series now! The Carolina Hurricanes win it in overtime!
When Eric scored that goal, we as a group knew, okay, now we're going. We're fine now.
Once that happened, I think everything kind of just was like at ease. We got one win under our belt.
You know, they thought it was over. They thought they were going to sweep us in 4, and, you know, Game 3 was tight, and, you know, it could have gone either way, and, you know, we came out on top.
We had to find a way to be able to steal another one.
Game 4 was as tight as the previous 2 games, but again the Hurricanes prevailed in the third period off the stick of Captain Rod Brind'Amour, and the series was knotted at 2.
Wow. All right. We're back to even. Now it's the best out of 3, and I knew we were going to win that series at that point in time.
Back in the Triangle, the Caniacs were hungry for their first home win. At the RBC Center, the team had earned the best home record in the Eastern Conference, and the Caniacs wanted to provide home ice advantage. With their crowd proud and loud behind them, the Hurricanes took the series lead, winning the game 2-1. In Game 6, with a chance to close out the series, the Hurricanes would face a rigid Canadiens defense that did not want to lose the series in front of their home crowd. In the first period, Sheldon Souray sent the Habs fans into a frenzy when he got the team on the board first. But that energy was short-lived as Mark Recchi tied the game 30 seconds later. Then both goaltenders went on lockdown mode, denying every shot sent their way, resulting in a third overtime game. Just over 1 minute into the extra period, Corey Stillman from just inside the blue line lined a shot past the shoulders of Cristobal Huet, and the Hurricanes won the series 4-2.
And it was just throw the puck at the net. I was sort of flat-footed, and whether it hit a stick or ricocheted, but, you know, the goalie Huet hadn't let in a goal from outside the crease, I think, the whole game, so or the whole series. So you never know what's going to happen, and it goes under the bar, and it was exciting. And you know, on the other side, to do it in Montreal is even better.
It was just kind of the perfect shot. It was a shock, and it was a great feeling. I mean, obviously the Bell Center quieted right down, and that was it for them.
In the second round, another familiar set of faces came back to the Triangle in the guise of the New Jersey Devils. The third series against the Devils in 4 playoff appearances for the Hurricanes. New Jersey had finished their season on a 14-game win streak to win the Atlantic Division on the last day of the regular season. Then they swept past the New York Rangers in their first-round series. Though the Hurricanes have been winning all year long, the prognosticators heavily favored the Devils to win the series. But the Hurricanes had other thoughts.
Yeah, again, you know, this is the experts saying that they were just going to take us apart, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, I wasn't concerned about New Jersey. They had a good team, and they had the best goalie in the game. But our team was really kicking on all cylinders.
I think when you talk about the perception or whatever, that's on the outside. That doesn't affect us at all. We know we play these guys all the time. We're playing. We know what our team's about. We felt we were the better team going into that series.
Here again, we're underdogs, and we took that to ourselves personally that we're going to get the job done here again.
It was, you know, Devils, and everyone was talking about them. They're going to beat us. Martin Brodeur's unbeatable, and I think everyone on our team was just super excited to get it started.
Game 1 was statement time for the Hurricanes, and what a statement they made. They scored 1 in the first, 3 in the second, and 2 in the third, providing goaltender Marty Brodeur, who had suffered the worst playoff loss of his illustrious career, a seat on the bench.
Sooner or later, the streak's got to end. I mean, you're not going to win every game for the rest. You know, it's got to end sometime, and we were fortunate that we played well, and we ended it for them.
Game 2 was the stuff that legends are made of, a mythic moment that all Caniacs will hold dear to them forever. New Jersey knuckled in and played Devils hockey in Game 2, concentrating on their team defense and waiting for their chances. In the first period, Jamie Langenbrunner put the Devils on the board. In the second period, Mark Recchi tied the game on a power play goal. In the third period, with under a minute to go in the game and both teams seemingly headed towards overtime, the surreal happened. Zach Parise took a shot just inside the blue line that ricocheted off Mike Commodore's stick and off Scott Gomez's stick and into the back of the net with just 21 seconds remaining on the game clock.
I lifted Gomez's stick and it either nicked mine, his and mine, and went anyways. It was a lonely feeling on the ice there, definitely.
Oh, shoot. How did we get here?
You know, they score and, you know, you can feel the whole building just kind of go, ugh. But, you know, we still had time left. We were like, all right, whatever. We'll go out there and we'll see what happens.
Many Caniacs began to gather their things and head for the exits dejected. But the team's never say die attitude and willingness to do whatever it takes was about to take hold.
Jamie Langenbrunner. Now the Hurricanes pour in a centering pass. They pulled Ward for the sixth attacker. Here's Stahl into Williams. He's bumped. Gets loose. He's centered. Stillman combed it wide. 3 seconds to he scored! A centering pass to Stahl. As Williams dumped it out of the corner, and Eric Stahl with 3 seconds to go tipped it in, and the place is going wild.
I got on my horse and tried to make something happen down there. And out of nowhere, out of all the crowd, you can hear Eric's voice yelling, "Willie!" When I scored that goal, I was, you know, going crazy, and you know, along with you know, the rest of the building and our team. So, you know, it's definitely a great feeling, and you want to have that feeling as many times as you can over your career.
That's a turning point right there. I mean, that doesn't happen. I mean, you'll never see that again.
In order to win in the playoffs and continue the ride, things have to work out. Everything, you need a bounce, you need whatever. And to us, and to me at least, that was the bounce we needed.
You know, is that never say die, whatever it takes attitude.
In the overtime, the Caniacs never sat down. History unfolded 3 minutes into the extra frame.
But Brind'Amour steals, sets it up to Valin on right wing. He's walking right to the net. He scores! He bounced it through the legs of Brodeur. It is Nicholas Valin who sets a record.
Nicholas Valin, Mr. Overtime, came through again. The improbable hero leading the way with his franchise record third overtime game-winning goal, ranking him right up there in the NHL in all-time OT game winners with the likes of perennial all-star Joe Sakic.
Nick Walline's one of my favorite players.
Well, the thing we know about Nick Walline is when the chips are on the line, he's there.
But once I, got the puck, I saw I had a little step on them, Martin, and I'm not a goal scorer, but I had a little luck, and I think he poked the puck between my legs, big goal again, I take it.
The look on his face, he's like, oh my God, I just scored a goal in overtime in the Stanley Cup playoffs again.
You do need heroes in order to move on. You need people to step up, whatever it takes. Nick Walline in that instance did whatever it took.
In Game 3 in New Jersey, the Hurricanes held a 2-1 lead after the first period, a 3-2 lead after 2 before Cam Ward shut it down in the third. The Canes were on the precipice of sweeping New Jersey from the playoffs on the Devils' home ice. But that was not to be. The Devils, hell-bent on not being swept, won the game 5-1. Game 5 was back in the Triangle with a chance for the Hurricanes to end a playoff series on their home ice for the first time ever.
Our preparation for Game 5 was, we're not going back to that swamp one more time. We're going to get rid of this right now. And it was, thankfully, we did that because the Holiday Inn in Secaucus isn't a place I'd like to spend any extra time in.
Ray Whitney did not have to worry about going to Secaucus because on this night, the Hurricanes would not be denied. After going down in the first period by 1 on a goal by Brian Giunta, the Hurricanes returned fire with 4 unanswered goals.
They score from the faceoff. Cabrera with a drive. 1:10 left with the penalty. Now walking in is Brind'Amour. He sets it to Brind'Amour. They score! Polsky's beaten to it by Ladd. Turns it away to center. They score! Ray Whitney upstairs. He races after an open net. He walks down. Go to the back end. He scored! The Carolina Hurricanes are going to the Eastern Conference Final.
The Hurricanes had won the series. Cam Ward, the rookie netminder, had faced off against his childhood hero and won. A moment captured in time as the two netminders met at center ice.
He just said, go all the way, kid, and the best of luck. And I remember just expressing to him that in my eyes that he was the best.
Once again, the Hurricanes would play in the Eastern Conference Championship with a chance to play for Lord Stanley's Cup. Their opponent, the similar in style Buffalo Sabres.
If you could have picked two teams that played the game the same way, a lot of teams would pick Buffalo and Carolina.
Well, the two teams were so much alike, and the two teams were very hungry and very determined to win. And when you talk about getting breaks and the stars lining up, they needed to line up for us in that series.
I truly felt this was the Stanley Cup right here.
Plus the people of Buffalo aggravate me. You know, that whole city, something about that just turns me off. But it certainly was one of the best series I think you would have saw in the playoffs.
In Game 1, it became immediately obvious that the Hurricanes were in for a long series as the Sabres controlled play and came away with a 3-1 win.
Playoffs aren't won and lost in Game 1. Whether you win Game 1 or you lose Game 1, Game 2 is still a very important game.
In Game 2, the Hurricanes bounced back and dominated play for 60 minutes. Buffalo tallied 2 late goals to make it appear close, but the series headed back to Buffalo, knotted at 1. In Game 3, it was Buffalo's turn to return serve and, boosted by their home crowd, regained the series lead 2-1, winning Game 3 4-3.
Dumont, backhander, Ward makes the Daniel Briere.
Sensing the team needed a change, Coach Laviolette thought the time was right for Martin Gerber to head back between the pipes.
The decision was not necessarily based on Cam Ward and what he had done or what he had not done. It was more in what I think the coaches saw in Martin Gerber in practice. He became very, very difficult to score on.
We knew when Gerbs was going in, he was going to be good for us.
Turning away all 22 Sabres shots, the netminder rallied the Canes to a 4-0 win, and the series returned to the Triangle tied at 2.
You know, he might have been the forgotten guy, but, you know, he did play unbelievable, and he did, you know, get a huge win for us.
It was same old Gerber, which goes a long way. And he got an opportunity, and he played great, and it was nice to see.
I remember he got the shutout, and you know, everybody's happy for him, and everybody was just happy that we won the game and we were back in the series, knowing that if I do get another opportunity that I wouldn't let it go.
Cam Ward would get that chance sooner than he imagined. In Game 5, with Buffalo holding a 2-1 lead to start the second period, Tony Ludman scored to put the Sabres up 3-1. Once again, Peter Laviolette decided a goaltender change may spark the team, and Cam Ward was back in net.
You know, when you're down and the goalie gets pulled, it's very easy for everybody to kind of put the blame on the goaltender, and you know, and a lot of times that's not really the reason.
A lot of times goaltender changes are nothing more than just a little spark for the rest of the team.
The Hurricanes fought back, with Mark Recchi cutting the lead to 1. Then the captain came through again in the clutch, tying the game on the power play. After a scoreless third period, the series headed to overtime for the first time. In the overtime, J.P. Dumas was called for a 2-minute hooking penalty, opening a window for the Canes. Corey Stillman hopped through that window into the slot and buried the game winner to give the Canes a series lead.
The puck is shot wide off the end boards and it bounces out probably to almost the hash marks, the dots. It goes under a guy's sticks right onto mine, and I don't even think, I just shoot it. Everyone's going to ask, did you fan what? No, I was just shooting it on that, hoping 5-hole, hoping the goalie guesses that you're going somewhere else.
It was the first time in the series a team had managed to win 2 games in a row. For the Hurricanes, it meant a chance to close it out in Buffalo. In Game 6, the Sabres played like a team with their backs against the wall. Rebounding from Game 5's penalty that cost his team the game, J.P. Dumas scored the game's first goal. It looked like the one goal would hold up until, with under 3 minutes to go, Brett Hedican tied the game up. And for the second straight game, the two teams would head to overtime. In OT, with Doug Wade in the box for boarding, Daniel Briere tied the series with a power play goal, and the do-or-die Game 7 would be played out in Raleigh.
Game 7, it's a big game, and you know what? I mean, we have a good team. We've been playing well. We deserve to be here.
You play your whole life to get an opportunity to go to the Stanley Cup, and here you are, Game 7.
You got to lay it all on the line, and you know, it's, you win, you move on, you lose, you're going home.
It's coming to the rink knowing you're going to win, not hoping, not thinking. I think the biggest side is walked in. Personally, I can say when we came to play Game 7, I had no doubts that we were going to win the hockey game.
The game was another Hurricanes classic. Mike Commodore revved up the RBC Center by scoring the first goal. The second period was Buffalo's volley, as both Doug Janik and Jochen Hecht lit the lamp, and the Hurricanes found themselves down by 1 going into the final frame. In the third period, Doug Waite quickly knotted the score and turned the tide of the game. Halfway through the period, with Brian Campbell in the box for delay of game, Captain Clutch led the way again.
And Brind'Amour scores! He jumped in on a loose puck!
You know, your captain who seemed to get timely goals all playoff long. I would never tell him that, but certainly he was the one who carried us in terms of production.
You know, obviously it was a huge goal, probably the biggest goal of the series, and I'm just glad it was on our stick.
With the Hurricanes on top with under a minute to go in the game, and Lindy Ruff waiting to pull his goaltender Ryan Miller for an extra attacker, Justin Williams put the finishing touches on the series.
And it is a Carolina-Edmonton final.
Getting that insurance goal was huge for us, and you know, really sank in there that we're making our first Stanley Cup appearance.
Like, this is awesome, you know, another trip to the finals, because, I mean, that's what it's all about.
As Captain Rod Brind'Amour was called up to collect the Prince of Wales trophy for the winners of the East, he called upon his teammates to join him at the podium, and together they were the Eastern Conference champions.
So the Canes were in the Stanley Cup Finals once again, and out west we had an interesting story. It was a Cinderella story of the Edmonton Oilers, who qualified for the postseason during the final weekend of the regular season. They were the number 8 seed. They played number 1 Detroit in round 1 and eliminated them in 6 games. It was San Jose in round 2, and the Sharks fell also in 6. In the Western Conference Finals, the Anaheim Ducks were supposed to beat the Edmonton Oilers, and the Oilers took care of the Ducks in 5 games. So now the ballroom was set in Carolina, and would midnight strike on the Cinderella Oilers?
Well, I knew it was going to be a tough series because I had seen them play Detroit, and I had been to a couple of those games, and you'd just be going long game, and all of a sudden they'd win the game just like we won in 2002. So I don't think anybody in our organization took them lightly.
For several players born and reared in the Edmonton, Alberta area, the series was somewhat of a homecoming.
Well, I think it's basically my dream was coming together, you know, perfectly. You couldn't write a better script. You know, being in my rookie season, being in the Stanley Cup playoffs, or in the Stanley Cup finals, and playing against the Edmonton Oilers, my childhood team that I cheered for in my hometown. You couldn't write a better script.
You know what, it was nice, you know. Obviously, you know, I have a lot of friends at home, and they're torn, but, you know, you get your text messages, and good luck, we hope you do well, but go Oilers, you know, like, I'm just texting them, like, if you're going to send stuff like that, lose my number, you know.
All I can think to myself is this is going to be very awkward for my family, and it was very awkward. What a great situation to have to play one of the best franchises in the history of the game, in my eyes, because I grew up there, but there couldn't have been a better place for me to have to play a chance to play at my first Stanley Cup.
Game 1 was a wild game from Jump Street. The heavily favored Hurricanes came out flat-footed, and the Oilers caught them napping. They stormed out to a 3-goal lead, which included the first-ever penalty shot goal by a defenseman, when Chris Pronger beat Cam Ward in the second period.
Here comes Pronger up through center. He's across the line. He scores on the short stick side of Ward.
Once again, it was the captain leading the charge. Rod Brind'Amour got the team back on track with a tip-in goal at the end of the second period.
Hold up, hits the trailer. Williams walking in from the slot. They score!
In the third period, Ray Whitney single-handedly evened the game with 2 goals 3.5 minutes apart, and new life was breathed into the RBC Center.
Centers the Recchi walking in, a mark, and the rebound. They score! The rebound right out in front of the net, and a big one
the mid-mark of the third period on the penalty kill. Justin Williams gave the Canes the lead with a shorthanded goal.
Picked up by Williams. He's up at center. He's over the line walking in a wrist up. He scored! Justin Williams on a pickoff from Steos' bobble, and the Hurricanes take the lead.
The lead would not last very long when Alish Hemsky tied the game on an Oilers power play goal. In a game filled with luck and chance, wouldn't you know the outcome would come down to fate. Dwayne Roloson was the biggest factor in the Oilers' run to the finals, dominating between the pipes. He led the team through the West with his solid performance. However, on this night, his playoff run would come to an end, when Andrew Ladd, driving hard to the net, would be hit from behind by an Oilers defenseman, knocking him into Roloson and knocking Roloson out of the series. With their starting netminder sidelined, backup goaltender Ty Conklin would have the unenviable task of coming off the bench cold to stop the vaulted Hurricanes offense. Unfortunately for the Oilers, his bench rust would crumble to the ice at the most inconvenient time possible.
Lead pass, he missed everybody, but out came Conklin to play it. He'll leave it for Smith, it'll open net, they score! It's stolen, and Brind'Amour curled it around the post!
I mean, that's tough. I mean, I always picture myself in that position, and that's got to be a lonely feeling.
That's the game. You know, to get outplayed, to outplay, to back and forth. That's just the way the game goes.
You can say we stole it or whatever, fate.
With Roloson sidelined and Conklin the GOAT of Game 1, Oilers head coach Craig McTavish came back in Game 2 with goaltender Jussi Markkanen. He would have to deal with the onslaught of a talented team of goal sharks that smelled blood in the water.
Stoll, 2-on-1 with Ladd. He comes in. Then he reaches, he scores! Andrew Ladd right to the legs of Markkanen on the 2-on-1 with Stoll. Wants the center, flip past Cullen. Cullen turns, gives far side Wendy, right in front to Campbell. He scores! Off the skate of Markkanen right out in front. The volley, a wrist shot that hits Stillman, roll to the goal, mouth up in the air. He's got the rebound. He scored! He backhanded it in after circling the net. Cullen gets a hand off to the spilled Recchi. Turns it to Recchi. He sets it in low. They score with the near circle. Grabs the puck to the slot. A slap shot. He scored! A drive taken by Campbell up with the top of the slot. And Mark Recchi may have tipped it in.
Yeah, I mean, we gave it to him pretty good.
We knew we were in for a battle still, especially going into Edmonton. I mean, and obviously we were.
In Game 3 in Edmonton, the Oilers were facing a do-or-die situation. Not wanting to go down 3 in the series, and with the aid of their rabid fans behind them, the Oilers would rebound and take Game 3 on a goal by Ryan Smith.
Ryan Smith, the save, rebound, loose puck, they score!
Realizing that Edmonton fed off the energy of their fans and knowing that the crowd drew off the new tradition of tossing raw meat on the ice, Peter Laviolette came up with a plan.
You know, their thing is if they throw the raw meat on the ice, it's good luck and they can win games. So they came out in Game 3, and we're in Edmonton, and it was a hostile place, and I knew that the meat was, the meat came onto the ice, and I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking, what is that? And then we didn't play very well. We got beaten Game 3. So I grabbed Mike Commodore before Game 4 in Edmonton, and I brought him into my office.
I can't remember his exact words, but he was like, Mike, yeah, you know the meat they throw on the ice? And I'm like, yeah, Alberta beef, it's good steak, got good meat up there. And I'm like, yeah. They're like, hey, he's like, well, when they throw it on next game, you're gonna be starting, get it off the ice. I'm like, what do you mean, get it off the ice? He's like, well, take your stick or whatever, get it off the ice and bring it over to the bench. Pete Friesen or Bobby, or I forget who had one, will have a bag, just throw it in there. I'm like, okay, sure. He's like, you don't mind doing that? I'm like, no, I don't mind, I'll do it, no problem. And I was nervous. Like, I was more nervous to do that than I was for the game. And I think it was Game 3 was the first time. So I thought, I mean, national anthems, I'm like, I'm supposed to be standing still. And I'm like, I might get, and they're singing, well, actually what ended up working out great is they'd throw it out during the Canadian national anthem, and the entire building would be singing. So instead of booing me when I went to, I mean, they'd throw that slab of beef out there, and it would freeze. Like, I mean, I got to it pretty quick. Like, during the anthem, I'm not even paying attention. I'm looking around, I'm like, where's it gonna come from? And I thought I was gonna get just booed relentlessly, but everybody was singing the national anthem. So it's like, you either sing the national anthem or you stop and boo me. So I heard a couple, but it worked out pretty well.
With the mojo for the Oilers in a trash bag, it was time to drop the puck. Sergei Samsonov gave the Oilers an early lead, followed by a Corey Stillman goal that tied the game less than 30 seconds later. In the third, Mark Recchi put the Canes on top to stay.
Here, gloved down by Stahl, side the net, he score! Stahl gloved it down to the side to go!
Carolina was heading back to the Triangle with a chance to win the Stanley Cup in front of their hometown Caniacs. So excited by the prospects, the Caniacs, who had been doing so all playoffs long, showed up en masse at the Raleigh-Durham Airport in record numbers.
I've said more than once, even way back before 2002, that this was going to be a great hockey area, and that we had probably the best fans in the league.
With those people coming to the airport, it was so appreciated by the team, by the players and the coaches and the management. It just showed so much respect for what was going on. And our fans never get enough credit, but there was just another sign of how special our fans are.
The guys enjoy it. Like I said, the guys look out that window before the plane lands and before we taxi to the gate kind of thing, looking to see if anyone's there, and sure enough, they'd be there. And whether it's raining or whatnot, raining or 3, 4 in the morning, they're going to be there, and it meant a lot.
I mean, I think everybody was prepared for some fans to be there, but to see the actual amount of people that were there is just utterly amazing.
But that just goes to show what we've built here. I mean, we've got awesome fans. This is a great hockey town now, and I'm proud of that. I mean, I feel, you know, you always talk about, oh, you got a great, every player, we got the greatest fans, right? They say that, but we've got awesome fans here that are committed to this team.
So the Hurricanes had wrestled home ice away from the Oilers, but prior to Game 5, as we came back to Raleigh, a funny thing occurred. Oiler captain Ryan Smith saw something strange at center ice. You see, Iceman Donnie McMillan, after the Olympic break, had put an American gold coin at center ice for a little good luck. Smith saw that, didn't like it, used his skate, chopped up the ice, and took the coin away. You know what that did? That put a little mojo back in the favor of the Oilers.
When stuff like that happens, you don't really want to challenge it. You know, if that coin had been buried and we had made it to the playoffs that far, that coin should just stay in our ice.
Obviously, I guess that's kind of their counter punch to getting the filet off the ice. And yeah, I mean, maybe it might piss you off a little bit, but you know, that's fine.
Superstitions aside, the game had to be played on the ice. With the crowd buzzing with anticipation, the puck was dropped, and within seconds, Fernando Pisani became the party pooper, scoring the game's first goal 16 seconds in. 2 power play goals midway through the first, and the Hurricanes had taken the lead.
He scored! A very good opportunity as that puck was loose. He closes into the slot with a step to score! Ray Whitney with a screen shot.
Ales Hemsky tied the game shortly after the Canes' go-ahead goal. And with under 30 seconds remaining in the first period, Michael Pekka gave the Oilers the lead again. Midway through the second period, Eric Stahl tied the game. And after a scoreless third period, the series was headed to overtime.
He scored! A very good opportunity as that puck was loose.
3 minutes into overtime, Steve Stayhouse was flagged for tripping, and the crowd could sense that history was about to unfold, and everyone rose to their feet. Maybe it was the overexcitement of the possibilities. Maybe it was the desperation of the Oilers' penalty kill, or maybe it was the missing coin at center ice. Whatever it was, history and jubilation would not come to Carolina in Game 5.
For me, it was like, you know what, I made a mistake. It happens. You know what, you're a GOAT or a hero, and you know, obviously I was a GOAT.
You know it is what it is, and we got to turn around and fly back to Edmonton, and we get another crack at it.
Heading back to Edmonton after a disappointing loss, the Hurricanes had to deal with a loss of another kind, as Doug Waite was out for the rest of the series after a mid-ice collision with Chris Pronger and Raffi Torres. The Hurricanes were stuck with the question of how to replace a player like Doug Waite. Eric Cole had been making great strides in his recovery, but opportunity wasn't about to knock on his door, so Eric made sure he did the knocking himself.
We stopped in Des Moines, and we get off the plane, kinda, like they don't really let us off the plane, but you go for some fresh air. And as I was walking by the coaches, Labby was on his cell phone, so I said something to Jeff Daniels. Hey, if Dougie can't play, does that mean I'm in? And he was like, what? You're crazy, get out of here. And then on my way back, I said it again, and they were all just, kind of I don't know if it was I don't think they mulled it over right away, but I think as we sat there, I went back to the back of the plane, and then the plane takes off, and then sure enough, 5 minutes after we could get out of our seat, Lavi comes walking back.
He ended up flying out from Edmonton, I believe, down into Colorado, got another opinion on his neck, and it came back that they thought that that bone could heal as much as it could possibly heal, and that possibly it would be no stronger next year at training camp than it was right now.
That was a tough decision because we know what he had gone through, we know how bad he wanted to play, but there was also that whole thing in the back of everybody's mind, you know, is he really ready to play? But we got the okay from the doctors, and as it turned out fine.
With Eric Cole back in the lineup, everything was set for a storybook finish. With the cup on the line, Coach Laviolette wanted everything possible going the team's way. That meant he had to once again summon number 22.
I brought Kami in my office. I said, listen, I said, if there's meat that comes on the ice during the national anthem, you go over, scoop it up, bring it over to the bench, and we'll put it in the green bag again. Sure enough, halfway through the anthem, it comes over again. And it's, you know, it's right between the hash marks in front of our goaltender. Kami goes over, and he scoops it and brings it over. The national anthem finishes, the lights come back on, and as I turn from looking from the Zamboni end and I move back towards the middle of the ice in the neutral zone, somebody had thrown a backup piece of meat, a little petite filet, back onto the ice, and we didn't see it, and we got crushed.
The Hurricanes were crushed in more ways than one as it became clear that the Oilers did not want to watch the Hurricanes skate on their ice with the Stanley Cup raised in the air. It was also clear that they were not as touched by the dramatic return of Eric Cole.
You know, obviously they must have said, let's hit him. You know, if he's on the ice and he's cleared to play, let's hit him.
Didn't hurt at all. Like, honestly, not an ounce of it hurt. But yeah, I mean, my head I kind of knew it was coming too, like, because I was pretty conscious of where I was and that someone was coming at me, and so I was just trying to poke the puck back to our defenseman and stay out of the way, and so I was already kind of leaning back a little bit, and he actually, like, I mean, if he was actually trying to hit me with a body check, like, he would have missed me completely and hit the boards, but it was just two hands. When he threw his two hands, it just snapped my head back. I was just like, jeez.
Maybe that's the confidence that he needed to know that his neck was okay.
The hits just kept on coming in Game 6 as the Oilers sailed to an easy 4-0 victory to force a decisive Game 7 back in the triangle. One game for the right to raise the Stanley Cup on your home ice. One moment at history's doorstep. One chance to be a champion. A whole community wrapped in the euphoria of the possibilities. The anticipation was overwhelming for the Caniac Nation, feelings the players themselves were going through.
Obviously things are tight at home, in the car, coming to the rink. Everyone's a bit on edge.
Kind of stuck to myself, to be honest with you. I mean, I didn't talk. I didn't talk to too many people outside of my teammates and the people here at the rink.
The day of Game 7, I actually slept like a baby. You know, I was very relaxed. You know, surprisingly, and knew that you know, it all came down, you know, to one game.
We knew that we were going to give it everything we had, and if every one of our guys gave it everything they had, there was no team that could beat us.
You know, we weren't going to be denied.
So Ryan Smith and his Oilers thought they had pulled a fast one. And I guess in some ways they did, right? They'd won Game 5, won Game 6, and now we had the 7th game back in Raleigh. And amidst all that, for all the marbles mentality going on, Coach Peter Laviolette took his own personal whatever-it-takes coin and gave it to Iceman Donnie McMillan. What Donnie did was bury it right here at center ice before Game 7. As we know, the Hurricanes players and coaches had adopted that philosophy of whatever it takes. That philosophy now before Game 7 was literally in the ice.
Game 7 in the Triangle was a fever pitch of emotion as the Caniac Nation smashed through the sound barrier at over 140 decibels as the teams lined up for the face-off.
We're all set to go, and Bill McCreary drops it, and Brind'Amour won it cleanly.
The building nearly shook apart 90 seconds in as Aaron Ward ripped the slap shot from the point past UC Markkanen, and the Canes had a 1-0 lead.
A quick slap shot off the right side as Aaron Ward let a screen shot go.
4 minutes into the second period, Frank Kaberle extended the lead on a power play goal with a blast past Markkanen from the point.
Didn't get out. Cullen plays into the corner to Brind'Amour, into Kaberle, scores! Quick slap shot under the glove of Markkanen, and Frankie Kaberle stung one.
All was going to plan with the Hurricanes controlling the pace of the game and going into the third period with a 2-goal lead. The sense of destiny and victory were very hard to control. That is until Fernando Pisani turned euphoria into anxiety with one swipe of his stick, 1 minute into the third frame.
Back up with it now, Rafi Torres with a man-breaking save, more rebound, another save, rebound, score! The Oilers have been able to cut the lead.
When you're up by 1 goal with 19 minutes to play, time seems to invariably slow down. It's at these moments when heroes rise. With just over 5 minutes to go in the game and a wide-open net, Fernando Pisani found himself one-on-one with Cam Ward and the puck on his stick.
Back up the wing, turning along, and a shot, Pisani rebound! Oh, remarkable save on Torres by Ward!
That was a timely save.
It was unbelievable. It was, I mean, one of the best saves I've ever seen at such a crucial time.
That is a big moment in time. That will be marked forever in history.
I was able to slide kind of out of desperation and make the save, and I don't think he got as much wood on it as he would have hoped, but nonetheless it was a big save and at a key time of the game.
I can remember saying to myself, you know, again, you know, when that save was made, you know, we're going to win this game.
After that save, the Hurricanes played a tough game of team defense, holding the desperate Oilers at bay. They had no choice but to pull their goaltender with just over 1 minute remaining. In the Carolina end, the puck was caught up against the boards in a battle between Eric Staal and Chris Pronger. Staal worked it free and capped off his breakout season by finding a wide-open Justin Williams streaking towards an empty net.
Across to Williams! Score! The Carolina Hurricanes have won the Stanley Cup.
Chris Pronger was kind of reaching toward me, so I kind of tried to pull it by him, and I looked up and saw Willie, all alone, and I just threw him the puck, and he was skating down on a breakaway with no goalie, and there's no better feeling. And I think I was cheering already before I even put the puck in the net, which probably what I shouldn't have done, but I couldn't help it, and it was one of those feelings that I'll never forget. We jumped as high as the glass was, and it was awesome.
He put that in, I just went crazy, and the whole place went crazy, but that's basically the game.
It's funny, I watch it back and I'm not even in the pile because I'm on the ice, but I can't, I'm kind of stopped at center ice, just kind of like, this is it, we just did it, and almost frozen, everything that you've thought about forever, all the emotions just kind of hit me right there, that, okay, this is gonna happen.
And you cannot wait for that clock to tick to zero.
Looked up at the clock and to see how much time was left, and when I remember looking up at the clock and seeing that and saying to myself, we won the Stanley Cup.
We're going to actually win. Holy we won the Cup.
It's something that I'll have forever and be able to look at and be proud of what I did and what our team did.
For one magical night, a team and its fans had come together like never before. The Caniac Nation had proved to the league that they are world-class fans, literally standing in battle with their team for the entire length of this game.
You look at the Game 7, I think they recorded it as one of the loudest sporting events in history. I've never seen anything like it where the fans stand up for the whole entire game.
Just another new thing for the National Hockey League from supposedly a non-traditional hockey market.
They stood for the entire game. I'm like, I don't think if you went up to Canada and did that, went to Calgary, obviously it would be loud, but I don't think they'd be standing for the entire game.
That was one of the best things I've ever seen in professional hockey, for sure. I don't think I've ever seen a 18,000, 19,000 stand for an entire game.
Our fans have set the standard in so many ways when it comes to events like this.
I'm not aware of any other major league sporting event where the fans stood from the beginning of the game until the very end. Everybody in the arena did it. It was simply an emotional, spectacular, exciting evening. And it was an honor and a privilege for me to be there.
I can tell you that Game 7 and the building and the fans and what took place here on that night was something that is very special. Nobody will ever forget it for the rest of their lives. It's one of those rare moments in time when 20,000 people are all on the same page, and there's just something in a building where you know you're not going to be stopped.
Our fans were going to do whatever it took to support our team to win the Cup, and they did.
The most valuable player trophy for the playoffs had to be awarded before Stanley made an appearance on the ice. For his heroics in coming in to stabilize the team way back in the Montreal series, Cam Ward was awarded the Conn Smythe Trophy. It was time for the presentation of the Stanley Cup. For Rod Brind'Amour, a lifetime of hard work finally paid off, and it was the absolute joy of a childhood dream realized on display when the usually quiet and reserved captain let loose and he raised the Stanley Cup. For several other veterans on this team, guys like Glenn Wesley, Brett Hedican, and Doug Waite, this moment was a long time coming.
The way that Roddy lifted the Stanley Cup and the emotions that you saw on his face, that's what it's all about. You know, that's why you play the game.
You know, you dream of it as a kid, growing up playing street hockey out in front of your house. You know, it's something that every player and everybody in the organization will always have a piece of that memory.
It's a lifelong dream. You grow up watching the Stanley Cup and watching all these people celebrating, and there's no feeling like it once you get a chance to hoist it, because you know how much work went into it over a lifetime to get your hands on it.
That moment, I mean, I wish everybody could be a part of it.
It was so sweet that year because of the fact that no one gave us a chance.
One of the things winning the Cup does is make you want to win it again.
In times like these, it's more than just about the team and the coaches. It's also about the fans, the organization, and the people that help make it all happen.
It was a very emotional time for me personally because I started on this building in 1984. Being able to see the culmination of a dream become real and meet the expectations, all of the expectations that you had for it. The culmination of that, of course, was seeing Rod Brind'Amour hoist that Stanley Cup.
It is hard to put into words the excitement that winning the Stanley Cup brought to this market. It was truly a blessed event for this entire region.
It's our team, you know, and I felt a part of it.
Having the Hurricanes win the Stanley Cup was sort of like a dream come true. It really puts your city on the map and your state on the map when that happens. But little did we dream that in such a short period of time they would win the Stanley Cup.
Well, it's really been amazing to watch the Hurricanes and hockey get embedded into our culture. That's something that I never would have thought when I was growing up that we would see in the state. It was exciting for me in North Carolina to be able to talk to all these other governors around the country from those states that have had hockey forever. And they couldn't believe it. It's just a great thing for North Carolina.
Part of my reason for coming here was help solidify, you know, selling the game in this market and making this a hockey market. And we came, you know, ridiculously close in 2002. And when you come that close and it doesn't happen, you wonder, you know, did we miss our chance? But you know, to see the organization and a lot of the players I played with come right back and able to win it right after was tremendous.
My fondest memory of all of it is Jim Rutherford lifting the cup. Watching it on TV, I was in a room in Montreal and on vacation, and that's my fondest memory because I know what he and Pete, Mr. Kermanis and Jason, and all those men that I worked with for so long, I know what they went through, and it was hard. There were a lot of tough nights, but the fans were great, and they never changed course. They stayed with it, said, we are getting there, we're getting there. Even when people didn't see it, they knew they were in the right direction, and now what a franchise they have.
In the following days, a treasure trove of celebration commenced as the Caniac Nation came out to watch two parades in honor of their team. In the offseason, Rod Brind'Amour would go on to win the Frank J. Selke Award, and Jim Rutherford would win another GM of the Year award. On opening night the following season, the Hurricanes would raise their first championship banner, and the cup would be at the RBC Center for one more night. The team would go on to visit the White House and meet President Bush as the final feather in their Stanley Cup hat.
They got a sign in their locker room that says, "It's not about me, it's about the guy in front of me." And one reason they're here is because they understand that when you serve something greater than yourself, the team, or your community, you become a true champ.
Justin Williams and Eric Stahl would play in and score in the NHL All-Star Game. But the team would not defend their title, failing to make the playoffs in the final week of the season after battling injury and postseason Stanley Cup hangover all season long.
Well, we have a great core of players, and we have a great front office. And now with Ronnie Francis as a part of that front office, we can carry a legacy forward. Where I think in this age of free agency and stuff, players really want to come here and play. The organization has a tremendous reputation on the ice and off the ice, and I think we'll see the kind of tradition that some of the more honored hockey names in the past had.
It's only been 10 years, and we've seen 3 division championships, 2 conference titles, and a Stanley Cup. Countless players have walked into this locker room, taken their seats, and carved out a place in our hearts, and a tradition and a history that can't be denied. We've seen the retirement of a Hall of Famer as he has become part of our legacy. And we've seen Eric Stahl go from the age of 18 and blossom into a star at the National Hockey League level. We've done this as one, a franchise and its fans. And we've done it our way. Because at the end of the day, it really is our team, our tradition. I'm John Forsland.